Fang Chen scanned his surroundings, his face a mask of confusion. None of this was familiar. "Oh," he muttered, "my name is Wang Chongsui." Luzhu gave a slight nod. "He is indeed Wang Chongsui. It seems the memory erasure was a success." The giant king of fortune scoffed. "Even we, giant kings, are wary of an Asura king's bloodline talent. It would be stranger if it failed on a mere four-aperture, nascent soul." The space giant king stared at Fang Chen's bewildered expression, but the memory of him leading that daring escape was still fresh. He wasn't letting his guard down. "We should run another test, just to be certain," he said. "Leave no room for error." The giant king of fortune let out a dry laugh. "Did he really mess with your head that much? You're even doubting the bloodline talent of Ashu, the Asura king." Luzhu studied Fang Chen in silence for a moment before speaking. "He's right. We need to test him again. From our brief encounter, this Wang Chongsui, this elite from the Central Plains, is formidable in every way. It's better to be cautious." "But how do we test him?" she mused. "If he's just pretending to have lost his memory, how would we ever know?" A cold, sinister smile spread across the space giant king's face. He patted the burlap sack at his waist, and something inside immediately began to squirm. It was the warriors and 9-aperture cultivators from the Central Plains he'd captured. There was one sure way to find out if his memory was gone: make him kill his own people. If he strikes with ruthless finality, we'll know his memory is truly gone. But if he hesitates, or shows even a hint of mercy, then we'll know we have a problem. The giant king of fortune nodded slightly. "A sound plan. And from what I understand, their actions on this mission are being broadcast back to the Central Plains in real time. If he slaughters his own kind, he'll be branded a traitor, cutting himself off from the Central Plains world forever." The space giant king grinned savagely. "Then I'll just pick a random warrior from the Central Plains. A pity. I was planning on sending them to the ancient sinkhole." Luzhu remained silent, her lack of protest a clear sign of her approval. Fang Chen's heart sank. He didn't know how, but his memories were completely intact. The erasure had failed. Luzhu and the two giant kings had gone through all that trouble for absolutely nothing. But this was far from over. Just as the space giant king had said, if he killed one of his own, there would be no explaining his way out of it back in the Central Plains world. Just as panic began to set in, a group of ancient giants arrived. One of them, a towering 9-aperture giant, knelt on one knee, took a burlap sack from his waist, untied it, and dumped its contents onto the ground. A young man with a broken leg tumbled out. It was none other than Zong Chaosheng. His luck had been even worse than Fang Chen's. He'd been hit by the giant king of fortune's triple threat: misfortune, calamity luck, and bad luck. Under the effects of misfortune, he had fallen into some ancient ruins, protected by a flight restriction. He was trapped, unable to fly or use teleportation to escape. Then, inside the ancient ruins, he ran straight into a beast tide, a direct result of the calamity he'd been cursed with. He finally managed to struggle his way out of the ancient ruins, only to run head-on into a search party of ancient giants. A flurry of spiked clubs later, he was out cold. And of course, it seemed his string of bad luck was still running, delivering him right to Fang Chen's feet. The space giant king recognized him instantly. "That's Song Chaosheng. He's a tough one." Thanks to Fang Chen's previous role as translator, the space giant king already had a strong impression of Zong Chaosheng. With that level of pride and the power of a 7-aperture, nascent soul, he must be a renowned figure in the Taikang Grand Province, probably some kind of revered young leader. The space giant king's grin widened. "So, what do you think the Central Plains world will think of Wang Chongsui after he kills him?" The giant king of fortune nodded. "Using him for the test is indeed the most logical choice." Fang Chen had to physically restrain himself from laughing out loud. He thought falling into the hands of an Asura King was the worst luck imaginable, but he never expected to meet someone even unluckier than himself. Cause killing any other warrior from the Central Plains would have caused him endless trouble. Any warrior, except Zhong Chaosheng. The footage of him surrendering to the Space Giant King had been transmitted directly to the High Priest. A man like that, wasn't he? Someone everyone would want dead. For Fang Chen, killing him wouldn't just be without consequence. He'd probably get a reward for it. Luzhu gave a curt nod and immediately issued the order. Wang Chongsui, kill him. But Fang Chen didn't move. He had to play the part of an amnesiac perfectly. If all he remembered was his name and his cultivation method, why would he blindly obey someone else's command? He looked at Luzhu with a blank, questioning gaze. Why? Who am I? Why should I kill him? And why should I listen to you? The expressions of the Giant King of Fortune and the Space Giant King immediately turned hostile, the source stars on their foreheads flaring to life. Luzhu raised a hand. Stand down, this is a normal reaction. A sharp glint flashed in her eyes. Clearly, her initial command had been a test of its own. Right now, he was a blank slate, a man with no identity. It was only natural that he wouldn't obey a stranger. So I will give him an identity. Luzhu walked up to Fang Chen and tapped a finger against his chest. My name is Azhu, the Asura King. I am your master, and you will obey my every command without question. Fang Chen's brow furrowed in thought. After a long moment, he held out his hand and said, Do you have any proof? Luzhu froze. It was the first time she'd encountered a memory-erased person so cunning, capable of independent thought. Seeing her lie about to unravel, Luzhu quickly said, Words alone prove nothing. You have no evidence. Fang Chen countered, Then I'm not your servant. You're lying to me, and I won't obey your commands. Seeing Fang Chen on the verge of slipping away, the Space Giant King said in a deep voice, Did the memory erasure fail? This is completely different from what we expected. The Giant King of Fortune also sensed trouble. Luzhu, he said, I think it's better to lock him up. Don't try to make him your servant, or you'll just create more problems later. Luzhu refused instantly. The only reason she hadn't killed Fang Chen yet was the blood seal of the chaotic antiquity blood marquis on him. The seal was a prohibition from the blood marquis Luangu himself, forbidding anyone from harming Fang Chen. Whoever killed him would violate the marquis's taboo, and the blood seal would transfer to the killer, marking them as the blood marquis Luangu's next target. She planned to use this to trap an arch-enemy. All of this depended on Fang Chen obeying her commands. Otherwise, it would be difficult for him to provoke her arch-enemy and make them strike him down. She waved her hand. This is normal. I can erase someone's memory, but I can't erase their fundamental nature. If he's naturally cunning and cautious, he'll behave exactly as he is now. The Space Giant King was the first to dismiss his suspicions. This Wang Chongsui, he is indeed quite cunning. The Giant King of Fortune asked, So what kind of identity do you plan to fabricate for him? An ordinary identity wouldn't be enough to command him. And Luzhu couldn't help but feel troubled. A friend? That identity was too loose. It wouldn't be enough to make him accept orders. Or family. One was an Asura clan member, the other from the human race. They were completely unrelated. Fellow disciples with different races. How could they possibly be fellow disciples? For a moment, Luzhu couldn't think of any suitable identity. Seeing her struggle to come up with an identity, Fang Chen actually felt anxious for her and couldn't resist giving her a helping hand. Fang Chen scrutinized her from head to toe, a thoughtful expression on his face. You're so beautiful, and you're ordering me around with such conviction. Could it be you're my wife? Luzhu's eyes went wide. Her first instinct was to slap Fang Chen to death. Have you no shame? Just because I'm beautiful, I could be your wife? Fortunately, she forcefully suppressed the impulse, and her mind began to think calmly. On second thought, besides being a master, perhaps only the identity of a spouse could make Fang Chen willingly take risks for her. Any other identity would either be easily seen through by him or wouldn't carry enough weight. But did she really have to become this guy's wife? The Space Giant King sent a cold telepathic message. He's taking advantage. You don't need to debase yourself. The Giant King of Fortune also said, just leave him to me. I'll find a way to drain all his fortune, then throw him into the ancient sinkhole. To both Giant Kings, this identity was simply too absurd. If the 5-star Giant King ever found out, Fang Chen's fate would be obvious, and Luzhu wouldn't fare well either. No, Luzhu objected. She gazed at Fang Chen before her, her heart struggling several times. Finally, she said with difficulty, he's lost his memory and acts like an idiot anyway. I'll just temporarily humble myself. Once I've used him, I'll kill him. I won't lose anything. The Space Giant King and the Giant King of Fortune were utterly bewildered. Was it truly necessary? What exactly did this kid possess that was worth Luzhu, the Asura King, making such a huge sacrifice, even willing to become the wife of a petty human from the Central Plains? For a moment, both of them couldn't help but show a hint of envy in their eyes as they looked at Fang Chen. Even though this guy was their captured prey, this kind of treatment was enough to make the Giant Kings drool with desire. The only thing they could tell themselves was that this was just a fake marital relationship. Besides, Luzhu was a soul transformation venerable, while Fang Chen was merely a 4-aperture nascent soul. He might bear the title of Luzhu's husband, but he wouldn't get to take any liberties with her. Luzhu made up her mind, took a deep breath, and said, "That's right, I am your wife. Husband. Don't you remember me?" Fang Chen, still bewildered, replied, "First you say you're my master, then you say you're my wife. Which am I supposed to believe?" His words made Luzhu feel a pang of guilt. She retorted, "We were always husband and wife. If you don't believe me, ask the 2 Giant Kings. They can testify." The Space Giant King glared at him with an envious look, then reluctantly said, "Wang Tieju, you are indeed the husband of Luzhu, the Asura King. This king, can guarantee that." The Giant King of Fortune sighed helplessly and said, "I even attended your grand wedding. We drank wine together, remember?" Watching them make such a solemn guarantee, Fang Chen almost burst out laughing. "Arr!" He looked at Luzhu with a dawning realization, his eyes showing a touch of helplessness. "So, you really are my wife." He immediately pulled Luzhu into a hug, burying his head in her chest and asking anxiously, "Wife Luzhu, what happened to me? Why can't I remember anything? Not even you?" The Space Giant King and the Giant King of Fortune's vertical eyes widened so far they almost covered their entire faces. Reflected in their eyes was the sight of Fang Chen's face nestled against Luzhu's chest, and their hearts were struck by 1,000 bolts of lightning. Luzhu was certain she wouldn't suffer any real loss, but to play such a bold game the moment he acknowledged her as his wife. What would happen next? Luzhu's entire body went rigid. She felt as if several bolts of lightning had struck her, leaving her utterly numb and tingling, unable to even push Fang Chen away. Her beautiful face visibly flushed crimson, and white steam practically billowed from her forehead. She stared blankly at Fang Chen as he nuzzled against her, her voice trembling as she shrieked, "What do you think you're doing?" Ong Zhen looked up, his eyes wide with feigned innocence. "Is there something wrong with a husband and wife being close? Or are you saying we aren't actually married?" Realizing she was losing her cool, Luzhu quickly shoved him away. We are married, but we're in public. right in front of two giant kings. Have some restraint. Fang Chen gave a non-committal grunt and shifted his position, pulling her into a tight side hug instead. Is this better? Luzhu felt like she was being pricked by 1,000 needles the moment he touched her. She had to force herself to endure it, not daring to push him away again, for fear of making him suspicious. She caught sight of Zong Chaosheng out of the corner of her eye, and immediately looked for an excuse to get rid of him, and to give Fang Chen one final test. Go kill him first, she commanded. Fang Chen nodded without a second thought. Of course, whatever my wife says, goes. Before Luzhu could even feel a sense of relief, Fang Chen pointed to his lips. But I need a reward first. What? Luzhu nearly jumped out of her skin. She wanted nothing more than to grind his bones into dust, right then and there. This absolute bastard actually wanted her to kiss him in his dreams. She shouldn't have to put up with this kind of humiliation. She hadn't even gotten revenge on her arch-nemesis yet, and she was already about to lose her first kiss to this guy. Sensing her breaking point, Fang Chen dialed it back. He pointed to his cheek. Fine. A kiss on the cheek works too. Luzhu reeled herself back from the edge of fury. A kiss on the lips was out of the question, but a cheek. She closed her eyes. Just pretend you're kissing a brick wall. She forced a tight smile. Fine, here is your reward. She stood on her tiptoes and leaned in to peck his cheek. But as her lips made contact, something felt wrong. A warm, moist sensation sent a jolt, like an electric shock through her body. Fang Chen had turned his head at the last second, their lips locked. Ah. Luzhu jerked back instantly, screaming, You cheated! Fang Chen looked completely innocent. My neck was just a bit stiff, so I moved it. You just happened to kiss me right then. Is that really my fault? Luzhu was absolutely livid. They had been married for mere seconds, and he'd already felt her up and stolen her first kiss. How was she supposed to survive the rest of this? She was starting to regret the massive sacrifice she was making, but the damage was done. Fang Chen had already played her. If she snapped now, wouldn't all her effort go down the drain? Swallowing her rage, she ground out through clenched teeth. No, it's not your fault. My mistake. Oh, Fang Chen shook his head. Let's get one thing straight. Stop with the you and me stuff. From now on, you call me husband and refer to yourself as your wife. I don't care how we spoke before. Things change. Got it? Luzhu was practically fuming. This scoundrel was actually trying to domesticate her. Choking back the humiliation, she nodded. I understand, husband. Satisfied, Fang Chen finally looked over at the unconscious Zong Chaosheng. Now, darling, who is this guy? Why do we need him dead? Back to the point. Luzhu felt mentally drained. He's someone who tried to ruin me, she said immediately. I never want to see his face again. Will you finish him for me? You don't even have to ask, Fang Chen declared, his voice full of conviction. Even if the entire world stood against my wife, I'd slaughter the whole world for her. One man is nothing. He drew the purple sword and marched toward Zong Chaosheng. Luzhu blinked, stunned. She was still furious, but hearing him speak with such unwavering loyalty made her heart flutter slightly. This guy is a menace, but damn, he really knows how to protect his woman. Under everyone's watchful gaze, Fang Chen reached the unconscious Zong Chaosheng. Without a word of warning, he swung the purple sword down. Argy. He had zero mercy for someone who would sell out their own teammates just to survive, especially someone in a position of power. A high-ranking traitor was far more dangerous than any common rat. However, as the blade fell, a burst of golden runes erupted from Zong Chaosheng's neck. It was his life-preserving talisman. This was the only reason he hadn't been walked back to the start, by the effects of misfortune and calamity luck, like the others. The talisman had been protecting him all along. Now sensing a lethal threat to its master, the talisman flared with power. A violent golden light deflected the purple sword, the surge of energy jolting Zhong Chaosheng awake. I looked around in a daze, only to see Fang Chen standing over him with a blade. "Are you insane?" he shrieked. "You're actually trying to kill me?" Fang Chen's heart skipped a beat. Zhong Chaosheng knew a bit of hell language. If he blurted out Fang Chen's real name, his amnesia act would go up in smoke. If the Space Giant King and the Giant King of Fortune realized they'd been played, there was no telling how they'd torture him. And Luzhu, she'd definitely tear him to pieces, burn the remains, and use his ashes as eco-friendly fertilizer for her garden, just to be sure he was gone for good. He struck with lethal intent, undying will. At point-blank range, a massive thunder sword crashed down from the sky, shattering the golden runes before they could even react. The thunder sword's momentum didn't slow. It slammed into the already battered Zhong Chaosheng, charring his chest until his internal organs were visible. He was critically wounded once again. Zhong Chaosheng howled in agony. "Fang Chen, you son of a bitch! You wouldn't let me defect to the ancient giants, but here you are, climbing the ranks yourself." Fang Chen's eyes turned cold. This idiot still didn't realize why he was being killed. "Shut your mouth!" Fang Chen roared in hell language. "Anyone who lays a finger on my wife, Luzhu, dies without mercy." He immediately summoned the 5-magnet primal mountain, unleashing a beam of divine light to finish the job. Seeing Fang Chen's ferocity, the Space Giant King and the Giant King of Fortune lost all suspicion. Instead, they were actually impressed. This guy was a total maniac when it came to his wife. He was really putting his life on the line for Luzhu. Even Luzhu was shaken. He's protecting me this much, and he doesn't even remember me. If he actually had his memories, and we were a real couple, would he really take on the world for me? The thought made her view of him soften. He might be annoying, but as a husband, he was actually pretty damn good. Zhong Chaosheng sensed the impending doom. His legs were gone, and he'd already taken a series of devastating hits back at the ancient ruins. At this stage, his power didn't even rival a 5-aperture, nascent soul. How could he possibly hope to survive Fang Chen's brutal assault? With the situation turning dire, he looked toward the 2 giant kings. His only shot at survival now was to sell out Fang Chen. The betrayal would be simple. Fang Chen could move the sky, touching Black Pillar. That detail alone would be enough to ensure the boy was utterly erased from existence. Boom! The 5 magnetic divine light crushed down, pinning Zhong Chaosheng beneath its weight like a fallen mountain. He hacked up a spray of blood, his eyes wild with hatred. "Fang Chen, I'm taking you to hell with me." He desperately turned to the 2 giant kings, shouting in his pathetic, broken hell language, "My lords, I must tell you, the immeasurable." Fang Chen's expression darkened. He knew this scumbag would try to sink his teeth in one last time. Without a second's delay, he unleashed the immeasurable tribulation. Bang! An overwhelming weight of suppression slammed into Zhong Chaosheng, instantly carving a crater several meters deep into the earth around him. Zhong Chaosheng's bones shattered under the pressure, blood spraying from every pore until he looked half-flattened. Yet, the golden rune on his neck pulsed, shielding his final spark of life and keeping him barely clinging to consciousness. Zhong Chaosheng shot a wicked, mocking look at Fang Chen. His eyes said it all. "You're finished." He forced his mouth open, intent on finishing his sentence. Aiba and Chen timed it perfectly. Blood-red lightning beams, thick as a man's arm, erupted from his eyes and blasted straight into the man's open maw. Zhong Chaosheng instinctively tried to clamp his mouth shut, but it was too late. Crack! His lips were blown apart, and his teeth were completely pulverized. His tongue was a second away from being incinerated, but the golden rune flared, just in time to preserve it. Fang Chen's heart sank. That damn rune again. With a twisted, bloody grin, Zhong Chaosheng managed to wheeze out a few words in hell language. He can move, sky-touching black pillar. To Fang Chen's relief, the lack of teeth and the mangled tongue made the man's words an unintelligible, slurred mess. Between the gore and his already terrible grasp of hell language, Luzhu and the two giant kings couldn't understand a single word. Luzhu looked puzzled. Husband, what is he saying? He looks Nike. He's desperate to tell us something. Even the two giant kings wore expressions of total confusion. Fang Chen didn't miss a beat, he declared. He said you might kill one Zhong Chaosheng, but there are millions more like him in the Taikang Grand Prefecture. Your southern heaven realm will never break our spirit. The two giant kings remained silent, processing this. A flicker of respect appeared in Luzhu's eyes. He's certainly a man of steel. Give him a quick, merciful death. Hearing this, Zhong Chaosheng nearly exploded with pure rage. Had he heard that right? Why was this Asura King calling Fang Chen husband? They were both scouts in the southern heaven realm, and they were both cursed by bad luck. Why was he about to die while Fang Chen got to play house with a beautiful deity transformation realm, Asura wife? And why did the Asura King call him Wang Chongling? Fang Chen must have played her like a fiddle. This bastard had thrived in the Jian family and stolen the spotlight at the sky-touching black pillar. Zhong Chaosheng had been able to stomach that. But even here, in the southern heaven realm, the literal heart of the ancient giant's territory, the guy was still living his best life. Was there no end to his luck? Where was the justice in this world? Zhong Chaosheng roared in a frenzy. His name is Fang Chen, not Wang Chongling. He's lying to all of you. Just kill him now. Luzhu knitted her brows. What is he shouting about now? He seems really upset. Fang Chen translated smoothly. He's saying that in 18 years, he'll be back for more. He claims he'll be reincarnated as a hero just to storm the southern heaven realm and wipe out every last ancient giant. Cold light flickered in the space giant king's eyes. Then I'll be waiting for you. With a mere thought, the screaming Zhong Chaosheng was detonated from the inside out, reduced to a fine mist of blood. Fang Chen dodged the spray and shouted with mock indignation. I told you I'd handle the kill. I should be the one protecting my wife. Why did you have to jump in? Why, Luzhu quickly pulled him back, soothing him. All right. I felt your love, husband. Thank you. Fang Chen smirked inwardly. This outcome was perfect. He had maxed out his affection points as a husband and passed their test with flying colors. Better yet, since Zhong Chaosheng hadn't died by his hand, he was completely in the clear from any future complications. He slung an arm around Luzhu, curious about what this woman was really after, by trying so hard to keep him under her thumb. His eyes gleamed as he said, Now that the bully is gone, Luzhu, my love, let's head back to our room. I'm eager to rediscover some of my memories of being your husband. The two giant kings nearly coughed up their own blood in shock. Was this really the kind of talk they were supposed to overhear? Luzhu's face flushed bright red. What kind of scandalous nonsense are you talking about? She barked, flustered. Fang Chen widened his eyes innocently. What happens between a husband and wife is perfectly natural, isn't it? Come on, Luzhu, let's go. He slung an arm around her and began leading her toward the Black Sun royal city. Luzhu was genuinely startled. This was not at all how she had imagined this would go. In her original plan, Fang Chen was supposed to be an obedient puppet. How had he suddenly turned the tables and taken charge? He wasn't just taking advantage of me. He actually wanted to sleep with me. She was terrified. She quickly grabbed Fang Chen's arm. My love, she said. There's someone else who's been bullying me. After you help me get my revenge, then, we can, you know, right? So. She wanted him to take on someone else. This wasn't a test. This was a real enemy, one who gave Luzhu a serious headache. But I'm just a 4 aperture. Nascent soul. Even if I went all out, the best I could do is match the power of a 7 aperture, nascent soul. How could I possibly harm a venerable of Luzhu's caliber? Could I have some hidden ace up my sleeve that I don't even know about? His mind raced, and he decided to probe her indirectly. All right, as I said, your enemies are my enemies. Who is this person? What is their cultivation realm? If I have the power to kill her, I'll see her utterly destroyed. A troubled look crossed Luzhu's face. She's even stronger than I am. She's a 4-crown Asura King, and I'm only a 2-crown. Fang Chen was stunned. A 4-crown Asura King? That was nearly on the level of a 5-star giant king. He continued to test the waters. I'm still on your side, of course. But we need to play the long game. Revenge is a dish best served cold, after all. Just wait 1,000 years or so. Once my cultivation is complete, and I reach the rank of venerable of the 5 heavenly senescences, I'll get that revenge for you. The corner of Luzhu's mouth twitched. If I had to wait 1,000 years, why the hell would I still be putting up with you? I would have slapped you into dust ages ago. She suppressed her urge to explode and said in a soft, gentle voice, My love, you don't have to worry. I'm not sending you in there alone. The 5-star giant king and 7 other giant kings are already making their move against her. All you need to do is provide some simple support. A sharp glint flashed in Fang Chen's eyes. So that's why the massive Black Sun royal court was only guarded by the giant kings of space and fortune. The terrifying 5-star giant king and the other 7 were nowhere to be found. They were busy dealing with an extremely difficult 4-crown Asura King, all so that none might. A thrill of excitement shot through him. For the longest time, cultivators believed the heaven realm was the sole unchallengeable domain of the ancient giants. But now it seemed that, in the southern heaven realm at least, the ancient giants didn't rule unopposed. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. He could forge an alliance with this 4-crown Asura King and fight the ancient giants together. Of course, he didn't buy Luzhu's crap for a second. Simple support. The way she was swallowing her pride, letting Fang Chen take liberties without fighting back. It was obvious her real scheme was something massive. He was just a pawn in her game. And this support, she mentioned. It was almost certainly a suicide mission. If he was going to take on that kind of risk, he'd be a fool not to demand a little something in return. Fang Chen subtly began to angle for his reward. All right, I trust you, wifey. Don't worry, you can leave the support role to me, Empo. But I think I should power up a little more first, just to make sure I can do the best job possible. He stared directly at Luzhu, his meaning clear. He was about to risk his life for her. Surely she wasn't going to send him off empty-handed. It took Luzhu a moment to catch on. The bastard was asking her for a reward. He's this cunning even after losing his memories. I can't even imagine what a nightmare he must have been before. Still, Luzhu hadn't planned on sending Fang Chen in empty-handed anyway. To properly enrage her target, Fang Chen would need something specifically tailored to get under her skin. Come back to my chambers. I have something important to give you. Fang Chen nodded, then wrapped an arm around Luzhu and cheerfully escorted her back toward the Black Sun Royal Court's main space, bold as brass. One of the giant kings watched Fang Chen go, his voice thick with jealousy. That damn bastard! He gets all the luck. But the giant king of fortune remarked thoughtfully, Did he really undergo memory erasure? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like Luzhu's the one getting played. Black Cloud, Stronghold. Inside a secret chamber, Jianer saw off another group of grime-covered scout disciples. She made a note in her small journal. Another 10 made it back. That's over 30 who have escaped safely now. I wonder how that little rascal is doing. It's been days. He should have been back by now. Thump, thump. 2 figures suddenly tumbled out of the void, crashing to the ground beside the sky-touching black pillar. It was Baeksin and Vajrafayan. They were a wreck. Baeksin's leather armor was shredded, as if she'd been mauled by some vicious beast. Her body was covered in mangled wounds, some with bite marks so deep you could see the bone. A dark, unhealthy pallor had spread across her fair features. She was badly poisoned. Guistiena quickly pulled out a vial of rejuvenation pills from the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion's stores and pressed one into Baeksin's mouth. Vajrafayan was in no better shape. His holy aura was faint and scattered, and his life force was weak. Wisps of black smoke curled off his body, as if he'd fallen into a pit of embers. Guistiena gave him a rejuvenation pill as well. After a long while they both began to come around, but as time passed and Fang Chen still hadn't appeared, Guistiena's heart began to sink. She asked, "Commander Bai, what happened to you?" Baeksin's voice was weak. "During the spatial transport, I was thrown into a subterranean ancient imperial palace. It was crawling with primeval creatures from the southern heaven realm. My cultivation was sealed, and they hunted me. I barely made it out alive. It was sheer luck. I stumbled into the palace's teleportation array and escaped." Looking at Baeksin's battered state, Guistiena had no doubt just how perilous the situation had been. "And you, Master Fane?" Vajrafayan pressed his palms together. "Amitabha, I fell into the tomb of the ancient Shura Lord. His remnant soul tried to force me to renounce my vows and stay as a companion in death. By the grace of the Bodhisattva, I managed to escape with my life." Guishin gasped. "How did the two of you end up in such massive trouble?" Baeksin frowned, his voice heavy. It had to be that giant king with the 9-colored star mark on his brow. The ancient records call him the giant king of fortune, a being capable of manipulating fate itself. We managed to run, but we didn't clear his attack range fast enough. His curse hit us, dragging down our luck with a tidal wave of bad karma. Guistiena's stomach dropped. "Wait until the two of you made it back. Where's Fang Chen?" Vajrafayan's pupils shrank. "Benefactor, Fang has yet to return," he asked, his voice laced with shock. Baeksin shot up from his seat, a complicated look crossing his face. "Then Fang Chen must be facing a nightmare, far worse than ours." Vajrafayan sat in stunned silence before bowing his head in prayer. "May the Buddha watch over him. I pray Benefactor Fang turns this deadly crisis into a miracle." All the color drained from Guistiena's face. She stumbled back into a chair, tears instantly welling in her eyes. "You poor stupid rogue," she sobbed. Meanwhile, the poor Fang Chen was currently lounging inside Luzhu's sweet-scented immortal's abode. The southern heaven realm might have been a desolate wasteland, but that hardly mattered to the elites at the top of the food chain. Luzhu's immortal's abode was pure luxury. Rare yin-chi artifacts the kind ordinary villagers would kill. For once their energy was drained, she'd just throw them out and fetch a new batch. It was an extravagant flex, all just to keep the immortal's abode comfortably steeped in rich yin-chi. "Wifey, you and your sworn enemy both belong to the Asura clan." "Why the bad blood?" Fang Chen asked, testing the waters. Luzhu had her back to Fang Chen, bent over as she rummaged through a chest made of bleached bone. Her light blue skirt clung tightly to her curves, accentuating a peach-shaped emblem on the fabric. Without even turning around, she scoffed. "You of the human race slaughter your own kind every day. The Asura clan has 10 distinct bloodline branches. We might as well be 10 entirely different species. Is it really that shocking that we'd be at each other's throats just because of clan politics?" Fang Chen knew Luzhu wasn't telling the whole truth. Members of the Asura clan were usually either hunted as prey by the ancient giants or branded as their totem slaves. Luzhu was neither. In fact, she held a surprisingly high status among the ancient giants. Unfortunately, Fang Chen couldn't push the issue without blowing his fake amnesia cover. Found it. After turning the chest upside down, Luzhu pulled out a battered jade box. Inside lay a pile of shattered crystalline fragments, the remains of something once whole. "What's that, wifey?" Fang Chen asked, feigning innocent curiosity. In reality, he didn't expect much. If it were truly valuable, Luzhu would have kept it locked inside her spatial storage artifact, not casually tossed into a random bone chest for anyone to swipe. However, Luzhu's answer caught him completely off guard. This is an Abyssal Hell Crystal. It was forged from the life essence of a fallen realm, Lord of the Infernal Realm. It has the power to elevate an Asura King's cultivation realm. What? Fang Chen sat bolt upright, his jaw dropping. Seriously, a realm lord of the Infernal Realm is practically on par with an ancient saint from the Central Plains. A being like that actually died, and their life essence formed an Abyssal Hell Crystal that has the miraculous effect of boosting an Asura King's cultivation realm. His mind started racing. If this thing really worked, he could bring it back for Liu Ruxue. Once she achieved the Asura King cultivation realm, this crystal would be an absolute game-changer for her. But logic quickly doused his excitement. If the crystal were still functional, Luzhu would have already used it to break through to become a 3-crown or even a 4-crown king. She wouldn't have to fear her rival at all. Right on cue, Luzhu sighed. There used to be 10 Abyssal Hell Crystals in here, but something caused them to shatter. Sadly, they're broken beyond repair. They're completely useless now. Fang Chen's heart began hammering against his ribs. They might be useless to you, but they're solid gold to me. My mountains and rivers cauldron can refine and fuse fragments back into perfect crystals. Doesn't that mean I just scored 10 free Abyssal Hell Crystals? If I tossed even one of these out, the Asura Kings of the Infernal Realm would be eating out of the palm of my hand. "Why is your heart racing so fast?" Luzhu noticed, shooting him a suspicious glance. Without missing a beat, Fang Chen let his gaze drag over Luzhu's hourglass figure and visibly gulped. "Because my wife is just too gorgeous. The more I look at you, the crazier my heart gets." Luzhu rolled her eyes, but secretly, she loved the compliment. After all, what woman didn't enjoy having a man wrapped around her finger? "We have business to discuss," she chided playfully. "Once this is all over, I promise I'll give you a very generous reward." Luzhu was dangling yet another juicy carrot that she had no intention of ever letting Fang Chen catch. Fang Chen reined in his wandering thoughts and nodded toward the box. "Are they really that useless?" Luzhu shook her head. "To an Asura king? Yes, they're basically dust. But for someone of the human race stuck in the nascent soul realm like you, they still have some value." She pinched a tiny sliver of the black fragment and rubbed it directly onto the back of Fang Chen's hand. As she smoothed it out, the powder dissolved and spread, staining his skin an inky black. Fine, intricate lines webbed through the darkness, hardening into what looked like a layer of pitch-black scales. "This will sting a bit," Luzhu warned. "Just bear with it." She raised a slender finger and lightly flicked the black scales. Instantly, a blinding surge of pain shot up Fang Chen's arm. He opened his mouth to yell at her, but abruptly snapped his jaw shut as realization hit him. Luzhu was a 2-crown Asura king. Even her lightest tap contained enough force to obliterate his hand entirely. For we had sworn that we should each always act for all, so that none might by all rights. His arm should have exploded into a fine bloody mist. Yet, apart from the burning sting, his hand was completely intact. 0 structural damage. "Seeing the benefits yet?" Luzhu asked with a smirk. Fang Chen's eyes lit up with wild excitement. "If I coat myself in this, I can tank a direct hit from someone in the deity transformation realm. Luzhu nodded approvingly. Look at my smart husband. When you're backing me up in the fight, cover yourself in this dust. That way, my rival won't be able to lay a scratch on you. With a sweet smile, she pressed the jade box securely into Fang Chen's hands. Fang Chen was absolutely thrilled. He had just been handed a top-tier lifesaver on a silver platter. Playing along with this fake wife was already paying off. Judging by the intense pain of Luzhu's casual strike, this black powder wouldn't even withstand a full-force blow from her, let alone one from her nemesis, a true four-crown king. Even if he coated his entire body in the stuff, facing that kind of opponent meant certain death. Luzhu was tricking him into a suicide mission. Feigning ignorance, he let a deeply moved expression wash over his face. He pulled Luzhu onto his lap, wrapping her in a tight embrace, and planted a kiss on her cheek. "Thank you, my sweet wife. You treat me so well." Luzhu ground her teeth, fuming inwardly. "You dog," she cursed in her head. "Enjoy your cheap thrills while you still can." After all, he was paying for it with his life. What she hadn't told Fang Chen was that this box of Abyssal Hell Crystal originally belonged to her arch-enemy, and the crystals had been perfectly intact. She had stolen them while her rival was completely vulnerable, deep in the process of breaking through to become a five-crowned king. The theft had been discovered. During the ensuing blood-soaked chase, Luzhu had accidentally crushed every single Abyssal Hell Crystal. As a result, her nemesis's path to becoming a five-crowned king was utterly destroyed. It was an unforgivable grudge, a blood feud that would only end when one of them died. Her rival wanted nothing more than to tear her limb from limb. So, if Fang Chen waltzed right up to this furious nemesis, coated head to toe in the pulverized remains of those precious Abyssal Hell Crystals, what would she think? She would see it as the ultimate mockery. In her blind rage, she would obliterate Fang Chen on the spot. Once that happened, the blood mark bound to Fang Chen would instantly transfer to her nemesis. And when the time came, Blood Marquis Luango would personally descend to claim her enemy's life. A smug sense of pride washed over her. She was a tactical genius, Essie. It was a masterfully played game of chess, flawlessly manipulating both Fang Chen and her bitter rival into mutually assured destruction. "I am absolutely brilliant," she giggled inwardly. She was in such high spirits that she didn't even mind Fang Chen's wandering hands roaming over her body. After all, this fool was going to die a horribly gruesome death, very, very soon. But Fang Chen wasn't trying to cop a feel at all. His mind was racing a mile, a minute, his hands merely moving on autopilot. This box of Abyssal Hell Crystal powder would definitely be useful for self-defense, but he shouldn't be using it to guard against Luzhu's enemy. In fact, that enemy was the exact person he needed to recruit. As for how to win her over, Fang Chen glanced at the Abyssal Hell Crystal dust in his hand and smiled to himself. What reason would she have to reject an ally offering exactly what she needs? Pock. Suddenly, a heavy tremor rattled the exterior of the immortal's abode. The space giant king's gravelly voice echoed from outside. "Aju, the Asura King, come out here. We have important business." Judging by his tone, he clearly wanted to keep the conversation away from Fang Chen. Finally granted an excuse, Luzhu scrambled out of Fang Chen's lap, visibly relieved. "Husband, I have matters to attend to," she said sweetly. "Wait for me here in the immortal's abode." There was no way Fang Chen was letting her out of his sight. This was a prime opportunity to gather up close intel, but he kept his intentions completely hidden. "All right, go do your thing. I'm going to examine my body and see if I can recover any lost memories." Luzhu half turned to leave, suddenly froze. Her heart skipped a beat. Fang Chen had a spatial mark embedded inside him. What if he accidentally discovered the spatial mark while inspecting his soul? If he accidentally triggered it, he would be instantly teleported straight to the sky-touching black pillar. That place was likely swarming with ancient giants by now. They wouldn't care who Fang Chen was. They'd just smash him into a bloody pulp with their spiked clubs. And even if the ancient giants hadn't occupied the sky-touching black pillar yet, Fang Chen might just use it to escape back to the central land realm. The thought terrified her. She absolutely could not leave him alone with his thoughts. Pushing her reluctance aside, she obediently sat right back down into Fang Chen's lap. "Husband, I changed my mind," she cooed. "Why don't you come with me?" Fang Chen wrapped his arm around her waist, planting another kiss on her cheek. "My lovely wife just can't bear to be apart from me for even a second, can she? All right, I'll go with you." Luzhu endured his kisses, feeling incredibly wronged. She couldn't understand it. She was supposed to be the master manipulator controlling Fang Chen, so why did she feel like the one being played? Outside, the space giant king's impatient voice called out again. She had to push her thoughts aside. Taking a deep breath, she told herself, "Luzhu, don't sweat the small stuff. Just endure it a little longer. This kid will be dead soon enough." She led Fang Chen outside the immortal's abode. When the space giant king saw Fang Chen emerge with her, he frowned slightly. "Ashu, the Asura King, what I have to tell you is important. I need to speak with you alone." Luzhu replied, "It's fine. My husband is no outsider." After all, Fang Chen had amnesia. The man didn't even know where he was from. Besides, he was a dead man. Walking, what did it matter if he knew the secrets of the southern heaven realm? The space giant king's mouth twitched. Is she really treating this puny human like her husband? After a moment's hesitation, he said in a low, serious voice, "The sky-touching black pillar is gone." Luzhu was slightly taken aback, her expression turning thoughtful. The space giant king continued gravely. "The ancient giants we sent have reported back. Our 3 soldiers stationed nearby have vanished. We presume they were killed, and the sky-touching black pillar has mysteriously disappeared." Luzhu nodded. "That's not entirely unexpected." A strange look crossed the space giant king's face. "You don't find this odd? This is the second time the sky-touching black pillar has moved." "No, it's not odd at all," Luzhu said, "because an extraordinary individual named Venerable Heart Bane had appeared in the Central Plains. He could move the sky-touching black pillar." "What?" Now, it was the space giant king's turn to be shocked. "Someone can move the sky-touching black pillar? Do you realize what that means? The arrival of the ancient giants will be fraught with unpredictable risks." "How do you know that?" Then his eyes fell on Fang Chen, and the space giant king understood. Luzhu must have tricked the information out of this kid. "Hey," he mused, "killing Zhong Chaosheng, the young leader of the Central Plains, and selling out Venerable Heartbane, the one who can move the sky-touching black pillar. I can't imagine what reason the Central Plains would have to spare a traitor like him." The space giant king's eyes narrowed, his voice laced with killing intent. "Venerable Heartbane, you say? Luzhu, Asura King, I'll have to trouble you to make a trip to the Central Plains and eliminate him." The narrow entrance of the sky-touching black pillar couldn't accommodate the ancient giants, but it posed no obstacle for Luzhu. She nodded. "We can plan for that later. First, we need to quell the internal strife within our Black Sun royal court." The space giant king gave a slight nod. Then, he shot a meaningful glance at Fang Chen and sent a private mental message to Luzhu. "There's also the matter of the armory. You need to come see it. This husband of yours, he's really something else." Puzzled, Luzhu followed them to the secret chamber in the armory. Her expression grew heavy as she stared at the massive door that had been burned clean through and the two empty stone pedestals. The space giant king's voice was grim. The yin qi you personally laid down was burned away. Can you tell what did this? Luzhu walked to one of the pedestals. As she lightly brushed her fingers across its surface, she sensed a faint trace of something. Her expression shifted slightly. It's the fire origin. This husband of mine, he's only at the 4-aperture nascent soul realm, yet he's already condensed the fire origin. She turned to look at Fang Chen, a strange light glinting in her eyes. It seems I don't know him as well as I thought. Full of curiosity, she took Fang Chen's hand. My dear husband, how many other cultivation methods do you know? She channeled a wisp of her power into him, instantly activating all the forces within his body, the power of the nascent soul, his raw physical energy, the void flow lightning force, his fire energy, and a faint trace of yin qi. She'd long suspected Fang Chen was practicing a cultivation method involving yin qi. Pointing to that trace of dark energy, she asked, "What cultivation method is this?" Fang Chen didn't bother hiding it, not wanting to get caught in a lie over something so minor. He answered without hesitation, "It's the art of the yin corpse. It lets me control corpses in battle." Luzhu and the space giant king exchanged a look of instant understanding. Not long ago, a soul transformation venerable, who invaded the southern heaven realm, controlled an army of corpses. One of them had even reached the deity transformation level, and that very corpse was now in the possession of the space giant king. After a moment of thought, Luzhu sent a mental message. "Give me that deity transformation corpse. Once I get the cultivation method out of my fake husband, I'll refine it. It'll be a decent addition to my combat strength." The space giant king hesitated, reluctant to part with it, but it's still a corpse from the deity. Transformation realm, those aren't easy to come by. Luzhu scoffed. "What use do you have for it? Don't tell me you're thinking of getting the art of the yin corpse from him yourself. You can forget about that. I've sacrificed so much for this, and I'm finally about to get a return on my investment. I'll fight anyone who tries to take this from me." The space giant king recalled the sacrifices Luzhu had made, letting Fang Chen press against her, enduring his kisses, and was struck with a wave of sympathy. "There's no way I can compete with that. Luzhu's sacrifice is too great." He took out the black coffin and tossed it to her, adding a word of warning. "Be careful. Don't let him be the one to refine the deity transformation corpse." Luzhu caught the black coffin with a chuckle. "Don't worry, I have that boy wrapped around my little finger. You think he can actually defy me?" Fang Chen watched this unfold, his mind racing. That small black coffin, isn't that Zhong Chaosheng's Dharma artifact? And with such dense yin qi coming from it, could it be that the deity transformation corpse is sealed inside? At the thought, his heart skipped a beat. This deity transformation corpse, my dear wife, must have prepared it for me, right? But he didn't dare let any of this show on his face. Instead, he looked at the two stone pedestals in the secret chamber, his expression one of pure curiosity. What's the bloodthirsty ghost eye that Ming Ye took wifey? Was something important stolen? Luzhu shot him a secret glare. And whose fault do you think that is? She eyed Fang Chen, wondering if the two items were on him. I need to find a way to get his spatial storage artifact. I'll check it thoroughly when we get back. They are very important, magical artifacts, Luzhu admitted. One of them is the Wind Origin Star. It belonged to the first giant king among the ancient giants to awaken the Wind Origin essence. Now, he's a being so powerful we can't even fathom his existence. He left this star for his descendants. All subsequent Wind Giant kings were born. By comprehending this source, you could call it the mother of all Wind Giants. Now that it's been stolen, it will be nearly impossible for another Wind Giant king to emerge in our southern heaven realm. Fang Chen listened, inwardly ecstatic. This is fantastic news. A giant king with unrivaled speed would be a far greater threat to the Taikang Grand Province than any ordinary giant king. The other item, Luzhu continued with a worried frown, is the bloodthirsty ghost eye. It's a supreme-grade spirit artifact of my Asura clan. If it falls into the hands of a 9-aperture Asura, it would be a catastrophe for our people. Because the bloodthirsty ghost eye can absorb the essence blood from any member of the Asura clan, allowing a 9-aperture Asura to forge their crown and become the new Asura King. Tai, jolt went through Fang Chen. So that's it. The sacred object Ming Ye was talking about was the key to him becoming the Asura King. No wonder he took such a huge risk to infiltrate the Black Sun royal court. That guy really knows how to hide his true intentions. He suppressed the shock, turning his gaze to the last pedestal, which was still shrouded in yin qi. He tested the waters. At least one item wasn't stolen. Luzhu let out a small sigh of relief. Yes, and this is the most precious of the three. If we'd lost this one, we'd be in real trouble. The space giant king narrowed his eyes, cutting Luzhu off. Enough, say no more. He still harbored a fair bit of suspicion toward Fang Chen. Fang Chen inwardly cursed his luck. He was so close to finding out what the item was. If it spells massive trouble for the giant kings, it must be an incredible asset to the Central Plains. He threw a stealthy glance at the stone pedestal. I need to figure out a way to get my hands on it. But the space giant king caught that subtle look. He locked eyes on Fang Chen, wheels turning in his head. A single glance might not mean much, but it only deepened his suspicion. His gaze shifted. Luzhu, since we are still waiting on word from the 5-star giant king, why don't we use this time to head to the ancient sinkhole? We can begin converting these Central Plains martial artists. He wanted to see if Fang Chen would crack when forced to watch his own people die in the ancient sinkhole. Luzhu immediately caught onto his underlying motive. She thought it was entirely unnecessary. She had absolute confidence in her bloodline talent. Besides, Fang Chen's performance, when he executed Zhong Chaosheng, had been flawless. There was no reason to doubt him. However, the ancient sinkhole, usually guarded year-round by a giant king, was currently defenseless since the 5-star giant king had mobilized their forces. It wouldn't hurt to hold down the fort there while they waited for further orders. Without another word, the space giant king raised a hand, unleashing a surge of spatial power that enveloped the three of them. The world spun in a dizzying blur. When the vertigo finally faded, Fang Chen's feet hit solid ground. His head was pounding. He leaned heavily against Luzhu's chest. Wifey, I'm dizzy. While she was distracted, he sneaked a glance at the golden bowl hidden in his robes. The map etched onto its surface had expanded to an unbelievable scale. He estimated they had just warped across half the territory of the Black Sun royal court. Luzhu gritted her teeth in secret. This bastard takes advantage of me every chance he gets. Flicking her finger, she shot a wisp of yin qi directly into his mind. That's just the side effect of long-distance teleportation. Is my husband feeling better now? Fang Chen finally lifted his head, looking completely refreshed. You're the best, wifey. Feeling the lingering tingle on her chest, Luzhu was flushed with a mix of embarrassment and annoyance. She made a mental note to start wearing a spiked undergarment. Next time this dog tried to snuggle up, he was going to get stabbed. Swallowing her irritation, she forced a gentle tone. Down below is the ancient sinkhole. Stay close to me, husband. Don't fall in. Before she could even finish, Fang Chen's arms were already locked tightly around her waist. Right. That warning was entirely unnecessary. Fang Chen peered down, taking in the sight of a massive, perfectly circular abyss spanning 10 miles across. Dozens of colossal fissures spiderwebbed outward from its edges, stretching all the way to the horizon. He recalled what Ming Yi had once told him: the ancient sinkhole had appeared after a cataclysmic earthquake. But what kind of earthquake forms a 10-mile-wide, perfectly round crater? This was clearly the impact zone of something monstrous crashing down from the heavens. As Luzhu slowly descended, a small pool at the dead center of the abyss caught Fang Chen's eye. In truth, it was impossible to ignore. The pool was a vicious, bleeding red, filled with a viscous liquid that looked exactly like mysterious blood. Even worse, the pool was shaped exactly like a human eye. Looking down from above, it felt as though a colossal, unblinking eye was staring right back at him from the darkness. It sent a violent shudder down his spine. Without a doubt, this was the ancient sinkhole capable of converting humans into the Asura clan. His heart sank. The space giant king had brought him here for one reason: to keep testing his loyalty. If Fang Chen showed even a flicker of intent to save the prisoners, his cover would be blown. He cast a covert glance at the sack tied to the space giant king's waist and sighed inwardly. With his current strength, how could he possibly save them, right under the noses of a giant king and an Asura king? He would only get himself killed. All he could do was watch helplessly. Swoosh! The three touched down in front of the blood pool. The mysterious, vital blood force radiating from it immediately sent Fang Chen's internal energies into a restless frenzy. A tidal wave of dark emotions crashed into his mind. Slaughter, greed, cruelty, gluttony. Weren't these the exact traits of the ancient giants? Just standing nearby and being exposed to this aura was enough to corrupt him. If someone actually fell into that blood pool, even the most iron-willed martial artist would be hopelessly tainted, turning into a savage beast like the ancient giants. Luzhu, noticing his distress, grabbed his hand and channeled a potent stream of yin-qi into his body. A refreshing coolness washed over him, swiftly snuffing out the darkness taking root in his mind. Fang Chen broke out in a cold sweat. This blood pool is terrifyingly lethal. A cruel, mocking gleam flashed in the space giant king's eyes as he untied the sack and thrust it into Fang Chen's hands. Wang Chongsue, toss them all in. A chill gripped Fang Chen's heart. Is this guy ever going to stop? Tightening his grip around Luzhu, he retorted, "Why should I take orders from you? You're not my wifey." Luzhu shot the space giant king an annoyed glare. "If you want to dump them, just do it yourself. Stop yapping." "Husband, let's wait over there." How could she bear to watch the conversion process? Over the past 1,000 years, countless members of the Asura clan had died agonizing deaths right in this very spot. This place was the Asura clan's literal purgatory. The space giant king's eyes narrowed dangerously. He had brought Fang Chen here specifically to test him. If he just let the boy look away, what was the point of this entire trip? "Luzhu, you may leave. Wang Chongsue stays." The space giant king scoffed. "Azhu, the Asura king, get your facts straight. I'm doing this for the ancient giant's good." Those words seemed to hit a raw nerve with Luzhu. She narrowed her crystal-like eyes, a dangerous arc of light sparking within them, as the aura of a two-crowned Shura Kingfar surpassing the space giant kings began to spread. "You want to tell me what situation I'm in?" The space giant king's expression flickered this time. He quickly said, "I meant no harm, Azhu, the Asura king. Please don't be angry. If you don't want him to come, then he won't. I'll just come over instead." Only then did Luzhu's oppressive aura recede. The space giant king secretly breathed a sigh of relief. He'd almost forgotten that some topics were forbidden with Luzhu, not to be mentioned. He unsealed his pouch and pulled out a nascent soul expert from the Central Plains. Before the man could even grasp what was happening, the space giant king tossed him into the blood pool. Fang Chen watched, a pang of unwillingness in his heart. already imagining the screams of his fellow human race member echoing in his mind. Yet, to his surprise, the human race nascent soul expert, who fell into the blood pool, didn't even scream. He simply sank beneath the surface. The blood pool suddenly erupted with a towering wave of crimson, and a 10-jangtal ancient giant rose from its depths. Its enormous eyes blazed with a mix of ferocity, bloodlust, greed, and cunning, a maelstrom of negative emotions. Fang Chen paused. Did it succeed in transforming? Luzhu gasped in astonishment. It succeeded on the first try. Is this just a coincidence? Fang Chen felt a bad premonition in his heart. He asked, "Wife, what do you mean?" Luzhu seemed puzzled. The ancient sinkhole has a very low conversion rate. Out of 10 asuras in the nascent soul realm, not even one might successfully transform into an ancient giant. Yet, this human race nascent soul transformed instantly. Fang Chen's heart sank at her words. As far as he knew, this was the first time in 1,000 years a human had been thrown into the ancient sinkhole. For the first attempt to succeed so easily, that wasn't a good omen at all. Could it be that humans had a 100 conversion rate? If so, that would be an absolute catastrophe for the Central Plains. Because if the ancient giants could capture mid-stage nascent, soul realm cultivators of the human race and convert them into their own, it would be a losing battle. What chance would the human race have against such an overwhelming force? The space giant king also realized this possibility, his face alight with excitement. He even forgot to observe Fang Chen's reaction. He grabbed another human and tossed him into the blood pool. And Fang Chen's heart, it succeeded again. Luzhu's jaw dropped in shock. Why can your human race convert at 100? Do you humans have some deep connection with the blood in the pool? Can you truly be a perfect match? Plans. One for each of us, and put the sign of the 4 of us at the bottom, for we had sworn that we should each always act for all, so that none might. Meanwhile, the space giant king had uncovered a monumental secret, letting out a cry of ecstatic joy. Heaven bless the ancient giants. The human race can actually convert into ancient giants at a 100 rate. Ha ha ha. I must inform the 5-star giant king immediately. This is incredible news that will change the history of our southern heaven realm. He was beside himself, overcome with uncontrollable excitement. Fang Chen, on the other hand, felt his heart sink to rock bottom. He remembered the master of the heavenly secret pavilion's lament to the heavens when he first saw the sky-touching black pillar. The heavens are not on our side. Plans. One for each of us, and put the sign of the 4 of us at the bottom, for we had sworn that we should each always act for all, so that none might. Fang Chen felt the same despair. This ancient sinkhole was nothing short of a harbinger of destruction for the Central Plains world. Plans, one for each of us, and put the sign of the 4 of us at the bottom, for we had sworn that we should each always act for all, so that none might. With such a startling discovery, the ancient sinkhole would undoubtedly be heavily guarded from now on, leaving no room for anyone to sabotage it at the bottom, for we had sworn that we should each always act for all, so that none might. Luzhu cast a sympathetic glance at Fang Chen, muttering inwardly, "This time, the Central Plains is doomed." She tugged Fang Chen away, saying, "Husband, let's move to the side." Fang Chen dared not show any unusual expression, following her to a secluded spot. He still held on to a glimmer of hope. Perhaps the only chance lay in allying with the Asura clan of the southern heaven realm. And Luzhu, right before him, didn't seem entirely allied with the ancient giants. He straightened his gaze and asked, "Wife, why are they creating ancient giants?" Luzhu squeezed Fang Chen's hand, feeling a sense of relief. It was fortunate that Fang Chen had lost his memories and didn't know how brutal this scene was for the Central Plains. she said. To invade a place called the Central Plains World. Fang Chen then asked, will you go too? Luzhu shook her head without hesitation. I won't go. They're going to devour people. I'm just helping them guard the Black Sun Royal Court to prevent the Asura clan from launching a sneak attack from behind. Fang Chen pondered again. Wife, aren't you also from the Asura clan? Why are you with the ancient giants? Luzhu frowned, clearly disliking this topic being brought up earlier. When the space giant king mentioned it, she'd been ready to turn hostile, but since it was Fang Chen who brought it up, she could understand. After all, Fang Chen was an outsider and knew nothing. After a moment of hesitation, she said, I didn't want to either. My village couldn't tolerate me. To survive, I came to the Black Sun Royal Court to seek refuge. Fang Chen was secretly astonished. What kind of village was so formidable? It had more than one Asura king, and even the ancient giant Centennial Calamity couldn't destroy them, allowing them to grow so strong. It must be that their village was located within some very special ancient ruins, making it difficult for the ancient giants to attack. He asked, Is the archenemy you mentioned also from your village? Luzhu nodded, her eyes flashing sharply. Yes, she constantly targeted me, trying countless times to drive me out. This time, I made a mistake, and she seized the chance to have me executed. So, I ran away, and on the way, I stole her Abyssal Hell Crystal. Just as Fang Chen had anticipated, he asked curiously, What mistake did you make? He found it hard to believe a two-crown Asura king should be a powerful asset to the village. Why would they go so far as to execute her? Luzhu sighed, annoyed. We captured a princess of the Dark Asura race. That princess could have brought our village an opportunity to break through to the Asura Emperor realm. She was under my guard, but she unexpectedly escaped from my hands. An Asura Emperor? Fang Chen was secretly startled. That's equivalent to the Great Sage realm in the Central Land realm, was a princess of the Dark Asura race. Really? That valuable? Wait. Fang Chen suddenly remembered. If he wasn't mistaken, the Asura clan woman who fell from the sky near White Horse Temple, wasn't she from the Dark Asura race? Huaxin had explicitly stated that the Dark Asura race from the Infernal Realm was extinct, and she hated them to the core. Could it be that the Asura princess who escaped from Luzhu's hands was the very one imprisoned in White Horse Temple? This princess could make an Asura king advance to an Asura emperor. This information was mind-blowing. As expected, nothing that fell from the sky was ever simple. After Luzhu finished speaking, she suddenly felt much lighter. She had never explicitly told the ancient giants these things. Now, treating Fang Chen, a man destined to die, as her confidant, she had unintentionally revealed the full story. Any more questions? Luzhu asked, having finally opened up. Fang Chen gently pulled her close by the shoulder. You're feeling lost, aren't you? Luzhu froze, caught completely off guard by his question. She fell silent as a heavy weight settled in her chest, stealing her desire to speak. How could she not be born of the Asura clan? She was cast out by her own people. To survive, she had joined the ancient giants. Now, the Asuras branded her a traitor, while the giants treated her as an outsider. She belonged nowhere. In the vast southern heaven realm, there was no longer a single place she could call home. Where was she supposed to go from here? Her mind was a complete blank. Fang Chen spoke softly. It's natural to feel lost. We're born into this world with no idea why we're here. We spend our entire lives running, searching for a fleeting moment of peace amidst the great, terrifying unknown. No one can truly control the course of a long life. We cannot even predict if tomorrow or tragedy will strike first. Everyone is lost. You, me, all of us. So there's no need to fear. Just keep moving forward, with hope in your heart. Leave the rest to fate. Luzhu stared blankly, but his simple, honest words struck a chord deep within her soul. A rare sense of peace, finally settled over her restless heart. She turned her head to look at Fang Chen. He was gazing off into the distance, his profile outlined against the horizon. With his sharp profile, deep, searching gaze, and calm, effortless poise, he possessed a magnetic charm in that moment. Feeling the warmth of his hand holding her shoulder, she suddenly thought that playing make-believe spouses might not be so bad after all. As a husband, Fang Chen was actually doing an incredible job. He could make a woman feel completely safe, both body and soul. Driven by some unspoken impulse, she gently rested her head on Fang Chen's shoulder. She closed her eyes, basking in this rare moment of warmth within the freezing cold of the heaven realm. But that peace was instantly shattered by the ecstatic roaring of the space giant king. Because once again he had tossed a member of the human race into the pit, successfully converting them into an ancient giant. Ha! Human race, you are nothing short of a divine gift to us ancient giants. He hoisted the giant sack, preparing to dump the rest of his captives into the pit. Might. But right then, disaster struck, the sign of the four of us at the bottom, for we had sworn that we should each always act for all, so that none might. A massive wave of yin qi erupted, sweeping across the entire area. Thick bands of yin qi materialized in the air above the ancient sinkhole. The sign of the four of us at the bottom, for we had sworn that we should each always act for all, so that none might. Like heavy chains they crisscrossed and wove together, forming a massive cage that sealed off the ancient sinkhole. The sign of the four of us at the bottom, for we had sworn that we should each always act for all, so that none. He growled, "Insolent Asura clan! How dare you trespass upon the sacred grounds of the ancient giants?" Black star on his forehead flashed, unleashing a violent ripple of spatial energy. The blast tore a massive hole straight through the top of the cage, but the moment he struck the space, right beside him rippled without warning. With his hypersensitive spatial awareness, the space giant king instantly felt the source star on his forehead flare up again. But before he could channel his spatial origin source, a low whisper echoed from the rift, "Forget soul, forget mind, forget self." The space giant king froze, slipping into a sudden daze. It was as if he had forgotten who he was and how to unleash his spatial origin source. It lasted only a split second, but in a battle of this level, a split second was a death sentence. A spear, radiating, a bone-chilling. Yin Qi thrust forward, impaling his massive golden eye. With a brutal twist of the spear, the space giant king let out a single strangled shriek before his head exploded into a shower of gore. It all happened in the blink of an eye, and the four of us at the bottom. For we had sworn that we should each always act for all, so that none might. Luzhu pulled away from Fang Chen's embrace, but by the time she tried to intervene, it was already too late. The four of us at the bottom, for we had sworn that we should each always act for all, so that none might. Out from the spatial rift stepped a hulking male Asura. His face was a mask of cold fury, radiating a dark, suffocating malice. He cast a cold glance at the collapsing heap of the space giant king, then locked his eyes onto Luzhu, the four of us at the bottom, for we had sworn that we should each always act for all, so that none might. Luzhu, the Asura King, to think I'd run into you here. I might as well take your head back with me. Luzhu gasped, in shock. Zuri! What are you doing here? I thought only that woman was sent to hunt me down. Asura King Ari replied indifferently. Hunting you is just a sideshow, Em. Our primary objective is to destroy the ancient sinkhole once and for all. Luzhu's eyes widened as the pieces finally fell into place. There was a reason the four-crowned Shura King's arch-nemesis had delayed the killing blow for so long. She was acting as bait, drawing the focus of the 5-star Giant King and the other Giant Kings. Only then could Asura King Ari, lurking in the shadows, strike while the Blood Pool's defenses were thin and dismantle the place. Luzhu spoke in a low, heavy voice. "Zuri, don't be reckless. This Blood Pool has a terrifying history. You won't be able to destroy it. You might even end up getting yourself killed, of the 4 of us at the bottom, for we had sworn that we should each always act for all, so that none might." She didn't harbor any hatred for her fellow tribesmen, and offered them a sincere warning out of goodwill. Unfortunately, Asura King Ari didn't appreciate the gesture. Instead, he spat back a mockery. "Spoken like a true traitor. You've spent so much time with the ancient giants that you're already making excuses for them. I heard the 5-star Giant King has his eye on you. You're just waiting to transform into a giantess and be his queen, aren't you?" Luzhu's face turned pale with rage. "Believe whatever you want." She turned to leave at once. However, she didn't take Fang Chen with her. It wasn't that she didn't want to. She simply didn't dare let Asura King Ari suspect their connection. If he found out, he would slaughter Fang Chen along with her, 1 for each of us, and put the sign of the 4 of us at the bottom. For we had sworn that we should each always act for all, so that none might. Asura King Ari was an elite powerhouse of the tribe, having reached the level of a 3-crowned Shura King. And next day I drew 4 plans, 1 for each of us, and put the sign of the 4 of us at the bottom, for we had sworn that we should each always act for all, so that none. And next day I drew 4 plans, 1 for each of us. And next day I drew 4 plans, 1 for each of us, and put the sign of the 4 of us at the bottom, for we had sworn that we should each always act for all, so that none might. Asura King Ari yanked out a black spear and lunged at Luzhu with lethal intent. Luzhu gave a cold snort. "Think I'm afraid?" She leaped from the cage and bolted toward the exit. But Asura King Ari was on her instantly, and violent shockwaves from their clash erupted across the sky. The sudden turn of events caught even Fang Chen completely off guard. His plan to contact the 4-crowned Shura King was instantly derailed. Now, his only priority was staying alive. But just as he prepared to flee, he felt something clamp onto his calf. He whipped his head around to find a single finger of the Space Giant King hooked around his leg. A lone eye still remained within that shattered skull. It was staring fixedly at Fang Chen. Fang Chen's heart skipped a beat. A Giant King's vitality was absolutely terrifying. Most of his head had been blown apart, yet he still wasn't dead. Even more unsettling was the look in the Space Giant King's eye. It was pure, unadulterated malice. If Fang Chen tried to leave against his wishes, he would likely be annihilated on the spot. Even in this mangled state, a Giant King could still crush him in a heartbeat. Fang Chen offered a cupped fist. "Salute. What do you want? My wife will be back any second." With agonizing effort, the Space Giant King extended another finger, pointing into the distance. Fang Chen glanced over and realized a black star, still matted with flesh and gore, was snagged on a distant rock. It was the giant's source star. The realization hit Fang Chen instantly. The Space Giant King wanted his source star back so he could use his blood to be reincarnated. Thinking back, it made perfect sense. The reason the Cold Mountain Giant King could regenerate from a drop of blood was because he had hidden a drop of essence blood within his source star. It seemed Giant Kings couldn't just regenerate at will. They needed their source star to do it. That powerful male Shura had targeted the Space Giant King's head instead of his heart for that exact reason. He knew that destroying the source star was the only way to truly kill a Giant King. Suddenly, Fang Chen felt a sharp pain in his leg. The Space Giant King had tightened his grip. Quote, "The glare from that ruined eye grew even colder. The threat was unmistakable. This relentless monster, still scheming, even on the brink of death. He would rather sacrifice a leg than let this bastard get off easy. Besides, I have a rejuvenation pill. It'll heal in half a day. It's just going to hurt like hell, that's all. Seeing Fang Chen hesitate, the space giant king moved its other hand. It seized the sack, holding the remaining warriors from the central plains. With a gentle squeeze of 2 fingers, blood began to seep through the fabric. Someone inside had been crushed to a pulp. A surge of killing intent flared within Fang Chen, but he quickly realized what was happening. This was a blatant trap set by the space giant king. If he did nothing, the space giant king would crush his people one by one. When he returned to the central plains, he'd face a storm of condemnation. But if he acted, he would prove he remembered them, that his amnesia was a lie. And the moment the space giant king recovered its strength, it would kill him without hesitation. Both choices were a death trap, but doing nothing was the slightly less risky path. As the space giant king's fingers tightened again, Fang Chen gritted his teeth. "I'll get it for you," he snapped. "Just don't kill them." The words had barely left his lips when a cold, "I knew it," glint flashed in the space giant king's shattered eye, followed by a flicker of savage killing intent. Fang Chen's cover was blown. Now, it was either him or the space giant king. Only one of them would leave this place alive. The space giant king pointed again to its source star. This time, Fang Chen didn't hesitate. He started walking toward it, his mind racing for a way out. He noticed that the star, pulsing with the origin source of space, was pitch black. An idea sparked in his mind: the dark night black snake. Its venom was potent enough to kill a giant king in moments. The venom was cyan. If he smeared it on the black source star, would it even be noticeable? The moment the space giant king pressed the tainted source star into its forehead, the venom would enter its bloodstream, a poison that kills on contact. But the space giant king already suspected him. It would be watching his every move, and the slightest misstep would be his last. How could he possibly coat the source star with venom without being seen? Thud, thud, thud. Seeing Fang Chen pause, the space giant king slammed the sack against the ground again and again. A fresh pool of blood spread out. Fang Chen whipped his head around, his eyes blazing with a cold fury. "Touch them again, and I swear you'll die right here." The space giant king just stared back with its ruined eye, a mocking gaze that said it had him completely cornered. With no other choice, Fang Chen strode to the source star and picked it up. But he didn't turn around immediately. With his back to the space giant king, he fumbled with something for a full 10 breaths of time. The space giant king slammed its hand on the ground, a clear warning for Fang Chen to stop whatever he was doing. A moment later, Fang Chen returned, holding the source star as if nothing was amiss. He met the space giant king's gaze and asked, "Now what?" The space giant king pointed to its own head. Fang Chen clarified, "You want me to put the source star in your skull?" The space giant king's eye dipped in confirmation. But before a flicker of hope could rise in Fang Chen, the giant extended its massive palm, demanding to inspect it first. Fang Chen scoffed. "What? You think I tampered with it or something?" The space giant king just glared, a silent command for Fang Chen to cut the crap. After a brief hesitation, Fang Chen reluctantly placed the source star in the creature's hand. The space giant king rubbed its fingers over the source star, checking for any residue. Finding nothing, it still wasn't satisfied. It spotted a pool of its own blood nearby and dipped the source star into it. If there was any fast-acting poison or harmful powder on the surface, its blood would surely react. Fang Chen had to admit the space giant king was dangerously thorough, but the blood showed no reaction. The source star was clean. See, all clear. Let me put it back for you. Fang Chen started forward, but the space giant king shot him a severe, warning look. It gestured to a spot far away, ordering him to back off and stay there. His suspicious actions earlier had made the space giant king completely distrust him. It wouldn't dare let Fang Chen touch the source star again. Fang Chen hesitated, but with no other choice, he backed away. Just like that, his chance to poison the star was gone. Finally feeling safe, the space giant king picked up the source star between two fingers and began the painstaking process of moving it toward its shattered head. Its injuries were so severe that it could barely extend its arm properly. Even so, it refused to ask for Fang Chen's help, choosing instead to slowly, painstakingly guide the star home. Finally, the source star settled back into place. Its nearly depleted essence blood began to surge, and life flooded back into its ruined body. A terrifying engine of destruction was about to be reborn. A brutal, cold sneer formed in its shattered eye. Its mouth, the first part of it to heal, twisted into a grin. It could finally speak, a hiss. It rasped. I finally caught on to your little charade. You're dead. Fang Chen's expression remained a blank mask, but deep within his abdomen, a jade-green eye began to faintly glow. You're the one who's going to die. Fang Chen said, his voice flat. Say goodbye. The space giant king flinched, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. Had he been hit? No, that couldn't be right. He'd thoroughly checked the source star. There were no tricks. But the next moment, Fang Chen felt a lightness in his sleeve. The jade vial, filled with snake venom, suddenly emptied. The venom, encased in spatial power, had teleported away. And where had it teleported? Straight into the space giant king's body, of course. That's right. He'd decided the plan to smear the venom was too easily exposed, so he'd changed it on the fly. While he was on the space giant king's back, he hadn't smeared the venom. Instead, he'd swallowed Wang Chong's eye of replication. The moment the space giant king's source star returned, and he regained his spatial power, Fang Chen instantly replicated his spatial divine ability, then transferred the snake venom directly into his body, and put the sign of the four of us at the bottom. For we had sworn that we should each always act for all, so that none might. The space giant king instantly felt a surge of spatial power within him, something foreign dragged inside. Without a second thought, he unleashed his stellar power, attempting to expel it. But before he could fully react, the eye on Fang Chen's abdomen flickered again, replicating the space giant king's spatial power once more. Sign of the four of us at the bottom. For we had sworn that we should each always act for all, so that none might. Whoosh! That spatial source star teleported right out of the space giant king's head and into Fang Chen's palm. Realizing his source star was gone, the space giant king's face twisted in horror. He roared, "Human race, gurgle!" As he opened his mouth, a torrent of black liquid spewed out. The snake venom had already taken effect. Soon, he would dissolve into a pool of blood. The space giant king was consumed by both fear and fury. He raised the cloth bag in his hand, poised to flatten it. Suddenly, his grip tightened, but the bag wouldn't budge. He couldn't smash it down. A fishing hook had snagged the bag. No matter how hard he pulled, he was helpless. His eyes watched as the cloth bag slipped from his grasp. No! The space giant king roared, a cry of pure rage. He couldn't accept this. He had just uncovered the astonishing secret of the human race's 100 conversion. Might. The 5-star giant king would have lavished him with rewards. Might this war in the lower realm would have been an unprecedented victory. The ancient giants would have utterly dominated the central plains, turning it into a hunting ground, just like the heaven realm. As a hero, he would have attained supreme status. Damn it all! Everything had come to a screeching halt. What truly fueled his refusal to yield was that the one who ended it all was a mere ant, someone he'd never even bothered to acknowledge. This insignificant ant had even successfully deceived 2 giant kings and an Asura king. He'd been toying with them all along. And in the end, he'd even toyed with him. This was an utterly humiliating death. With that final roar, his gaping mouth could no longer close. Black viscous ichor erupted from his mouth like a grotesque fountain. His face was rapidly dissolving. His ruined eye, filled with venomous hatred, stared at Fang Chen one last time, as if to promise Fang Chen that he too would meet a gruesome end. His colossal 20-jang body suddenly convulsed. A supremely potent vital blood force radiated outwards like a tidal wave sweeping across the land. Fang Chen's heart tightened. He remembered Baixin's words when an ancient giant fell. Their companions nearby could sense it. The fall of a giant king would likely be sensed by half the Black Sun royal court. Even in death, the space giant king sought to cause trouble for Fang Chen, hoping to attract other ancient giants to unmask Fang Chen, the infiltrator hiding among them. You can rest now. Fang Chen silently watched the space giant king's 20-jang body rapidly decay. After 10 breaths of time, all that remained was a puddle of black sludge and a few broken bones. From these remains, the ancient giants wouldn't struggle to deduce that dark night black snake venom was the cause. However, the stone giant king knew that Fang Chen possessed this very snake venom. So, Fang Chen retrieved a spatial storage artifact and gathered all the remaining corpse sludge into it. Then, he crushed it in his hand. As the spatial storage artifact shattered, the spatial power within spiraled everything into the void, leaving not a trace behind. After all that, he opened the burlap sack, and with a soft thud, a group of people tumbled out. Each of them looked bewildered. Seeing Fang Chen, then the burlap sack in his hand, they understood Fang Chen had saved them. Thank you, fellow Taoist Fang, for saving our lives. I thought I was a goner. Aches. Should the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion ever face trouble in the future, I will surely come to your aid to repay this kindness. Looking at his powerful compatriots, Fang Chen felt his efforts were well worth it. These were the pillars, the backbone, that would resist the ancient giants in the future. Saving just one of them meant that, one day, they might save an entire city from an ancient giant, which in turn meant saving countless lives. Suddenly, a thunderous roar echoed from the sky. Yuan Zhu and Zhu Ri's battle raged on. They could return at any moment. Fang Chen urged, "No time to talk. Hurry back to the sky, touching Black Pillar. Any delay could lead to unforeseen trouble." A warrior from the Central Plains asked fellow Taoist Fang, "Aren't you coming back with us?" Fang Chen glanced back at the blood pool. "You all go ahead," he said. "I still have something important to do." These people, having been inside the sack, didn't realize the horrors of the blood pool. He knew he had to find a way to destroy it. "All right then, fellow Taoist Fang, take care." The others no longer hesitated, activating their spatial marks one after another and departing. Only Zhu Xiang remained. She gazed deeply at Fang Chen, a hint of shock in her eyes. Unlike the others, whose vision was obscured by the sack, she knew what had happened outside. She could clearly smell the outside air, the overpowering stench of blood, and the perilous venom of the dark night black snake. How could she not have noticed? The fate of the space giant king was obvious. Fang Chen had killed him. Zhu Xiang didn't utter a sound. Instead, she approached the space giant king's death site and silently unleashed her innate divine ability. A massive amount of yin qi surged from her nose, then branched into hundreds of tentacles that stretched into every corner nearby. Some burrowed underground, absorbing a single drop of the space giant king's residual blood. Others extended far away, finding bits of shredded flesh that had splattered into rock crevices. Some tentacles even probed into the blood pool, retrieving a few strands of hair. These minute fragments of the corpse were all that Fang Chen had missed. Seeing this made Fang Chen's heart pound. He had missed so much. It was fortunate that Zhu Xiang possessed such an innate talent for smell, uncovering these hidden remnants. Otherwise, if the other giant kings returned, they could still discern the cause of death from the residue. Zhu Xiang placed the collected remnants into her spatial storage artet, then crushed it, completely eliminating any hidden danger for Fang Chen. She looked at Fang Chen, her eyes full of admiration. The Central Plains truly produces extraordinary talents. One of the Black Sun Royal Court's 3 most dangerous giant kings has fallen by your hand. Unbelievable. Fang Chen gave a wry smile. Senior Zhu Xiang, you flatter me too much. He was already on death's door. I merely helped him on his way. He wasn't so arrogant as to believe he had genuinely killed the space giant king. Zhu Xiang's gaze remained filled with appreciation. Even so, that was no feat for an ordinary person. Just look at Zong Chaosheng. You are far, far stronger than him. Recalling how Zong Chaosheng had begged the space giant king for mercy, betraying Fang Chen and their group, she shook her head again. My apologies. I shouldn't have compared him to you. He's not even worthy of being mentioned in the same breath. Fang Chen merely smiled, then his expression tightened as he listened to the increasingly fierce battle overhead. Senior Zhu Xiang, you must leave now. Otherwise, it'll be too late. If Yuan Zhu were to return and spot Zhu Xiang here, she would surely seize her. Gupta Yapsan nodded. From her sleeve she produced a thumb-sized obsidian black shard, like a tiny black crystal. This is for you, a token of my gratitude for saving my life. Fang Chen took it, asking with a puzzled frown, What is this? Zhu Xiang explained. Hold it in your mouth, and you'll briefly gain my olfactory talent. I hope it proves useful someday. Fang Chen was overjoyed. He had experienced Zhu Xiang's bloodline talent firsthand. He immediately performed a cupped fist salute. Many thanks, Senior Zhu Xiang. Remembering Zhu Xiang and Zong Chaosheng's past cooperation, Fang Chen surmised that Zhu Xiang's stronghold probably wanted to join the Central Plains before the Great Hunt. He fell into a brief contemplation. He said, Senior Zhu Xiang, could you tell me the location of Wangqiang Stronghold? Where is it relative to Black Cloud Stronghold, and how far away? Once I return to the Central Plains and discuss it with the Grand Taikang Province, if they agree, we can bring your people into our fold as well. Zhu Xiang was overjoyed. With Zong Chaosheng and his people completely wiped out, their agreement was null and void. She had all but given up, but Fang Chen had just handed her a lifeline. Thank you, Fang Chen! Zhu Xiang exclaimed, her voice filled with delight. A bold idea sparked in Fang Chen's mind. He offered a cupped fist salute and said, Actually, there's one more favor I'd like to ask. Zhu Xiang's face was all smiles. There's no need for such formalities. Please, speak freely. Fang Chen said, I'd like to ask you, Elder Zhu Xiang, to contact all the strongholds within the Black Sun Royal Court's territory. For any who are willing to come to the Central Land Realm, please mark their positions relative to the Black Cloud stronghold. If the leadership of the Central Plains agrees to take them in, I will bring all their strongholds down before the Great Hunt begins. He suddenly realized that in 1 month, during the ancient giant's Great Hunt, all of those strongholds would be left completely exposed. Instead of letting the mid-stage nascent soul realm experts of the Asura clan become prey for the ancient giants, why not bring them to the central plains to help fight against them? In exchange for protecting their people, their strongest warriors would join the fight. In the short term, the benefits far outweighed the risks. As for the potential chaos from a massive influx of the Asura clan, facing a great tribulation that threatened total extinction, those were trivialities. They could be managed later. Zhu Xiang frowned. I have no issue with this, and I believe most of the strongholds will agree. The real question is, how will you get them there? The area around the sky, touching Black Pillar, will be swarming with enemy forces soon. Fang Chen didn't hide the truth. In the central plains, we have a being of immense power who can move the sky-touching Black Pillar. His name is Venerable Star Soul. You have nothing to worry about on that front. Zhu Xiang was stunned, but then she recalled the rumors about the sky-touching Black Pillar having moved once before. Suddenly, it all clicked into place. A sharp glint flashed in her ancient eyes. If that's the case, she said, her voice trembling with excitement, then there are no problems on my end. We'll be waiting for your signal, fellow Taoist Fang. Fang Chen nodded. If the sky-touching Black Pillar appears one day in Wangxiang's stronghold, that will be the sign that the Central Plains leadership has agreed. When it does, you must all descend as quickly as possible. Zhu Xiang's aged frame trembled with an emotion too profound for words. After countless ages of being penned in like cattle, the Asura clan could finally escape this barren, savage prison. She exclaimed, her voice thick with emotion. Fellow Taoist Fang, this is a kindness the Asura clan will never forget as long as we live. I will go contact the other strongholds at once. Then she recalled something else. Hesitating for a moment, she asked, Fellow Taoist Fang, there is something I'm not sure if it's my place to say, Quote. Fang Chen looked at her, puzzled. Why the sudden gravity? Might Juexiang's brow furrowed. It's about that female friend of yours. How close are you to her? She was treading carefully. What she had to say was not pleasant. And if he was close to the girl, she risked earning Fang Chen's resentment by speaking ill of her. You mean Bai Xin? He asked. He was also curious about the unique scent Zhu Xiang had detected on her. His expression became serious. Please, speak your mind. Given his permission, Zhu Xiang's expression grew grim. Fellow Taoist Fang, you must stay away from her. If necessary, you must kill her to prevent a future catastrophe. Fang Chen's expression tightened. He had been prepared for something serious, but Zhu Xiang's words still sent a shock through him. His voice was tense. What makes you say that? Zhu Xiang's voice was grave. Before, we were strangers. I had no connection to the central land realm. Your lives, its safety. None of it was my concern. I didn't want to meddle, so I said nothing. But now, fellow Taoist Fang, you have shown my Asura clan a monumental kindness. Therefore, I am obligated to tell you the truth. She looked Fang Chen straight in the eye. Fellow Taoist Fang, have you ever heard of demons? Fang Chen frowned. When you say demon, you're not talking about someone who's gone mad from cultivation, or a warrior who uses some kind of demonic energy, are you? Zhu Xiang shook her head. Of course not. The demon I speak of is a true demon. True demon. It was the first time Fang Chen had ever heard of such a creature existing in the world. He asked cautiously, a true demon, is it dangerous? Zhu Xiang countered with a question of her own. Are the ancient giants dangerous? Fang Chen answered without a second thought. They are dark beings that embody all negative emotions. To any race, they represent total annihilation. Zhu Xiang's voice was grim.
The ancient giants merely annihilate races.
A true demon will annihilate a world, the entire world. Fang Chen was lost. For a moment, he couldn't even begin to grasp the concept of world destruction. The entire Central Plains world. dead and silent. How was that any different from what the ancient giants wanted to do? Weren't they just going to devour every living being in the realm anyway? Zhu Xiang saw his confusion. She reached out, and two clumps of earth, each with a few green shoots sprouting from it, materialized in her hands. She held up her left hand. This is the ancient giants. With a flick of her finger, the green shoots withered and vanished, the soil turning into lifeless dust. But give it time, and new life will eventually grow again. Then she raised her right hand. And this is a true demon. She closed her fist, and the entire clump of earth, shoots and all, simply ceased to exist, utterly erased from the world. Fang Chen drew a sharp, cold breath. World destruction? You mean the entire central land realm would just vanish? Zhu Xiang nodded slowly. The ancient giants are brutal. Yes. But the worlds they ravage will, in time, nurture life once more. In truth, it's difficult, even for the ancient giants, to completely wipe out a world. They've ruled the southern heaven realm for ages, and the Asura clan, while oppressed, has not been driven to extinction. Koch. A true demon is different. It leaves a world no hope. None at all. In that comparison, the true horror of a true demon became chillingly clear. Zhu Xiang's voice was low and serious. That unique aura coming from the girl is the aura of a true demon. It's incredibly faint, but my senses don't lie. She is a true demon, just a young one, far from the point where she could destroy a world. She paused, then added, There's more. All of her emotions, her passions, they've been sealed away by a powerful master. I suspect it's a measure to stop her demonization from progressing. A radical method. By stripping her of all feeling, they prevent her from falling into the very extremes that would trigger her transformation. What I don't understand is why this master, knowing she's a true demon, didn't just kill her. Why raise a demon instead? Aren't they worried that one day she'll lose control and annihilate the central plains? Fang Chen was shaken to his core. No wonder Baixin seemed so detached from worldly desires, and completely devoted to the righteous path under the High Priest's tutelage. It was all the High Priest's doing, sealing away her emotions and desires, halting her demonic corruption, cultivating righteous energy, and suppressing the true devil Kiv within her body. Fellow Taoist Fang, let me give you a piece of advice. Kill her while you still can. Harboring a demon is no different from playing with fire, Zhu Xiang warned gravely. When you make your move, you must pierce her heart. The source of all her true devil quay is located on her chest. There will undoubtedly be a true demon mark there. Her chest, Fang Chen recalled the 2 times. Baixin cast her invisibility spell. The yin qi really had surged from her chest, but the mention of a mark there reminded him of the Reverend of Six Dause's daughter. If he remembered correctly, the old man had mentioned that his daughter's most distinct feature was a birthmark on her chest shaped like a black feather. Was Baixin actually the Reverend of Six Dause's daughter? Fang Chen's jaw nearly hit the floor at his own guess, but he quickly realized the timeline didn't add up. Based on his previous calculations, if the old man's daughter was still alive, she'd be an elderly woman over 100 years old by now. How old was Baixin? She was a teenage girl about the same age as him. It just didn't fit. Fang Chen probed cautiously. Senior Zhu Xiang, what does a true demon mark look like, Enpu? Zhu Xiang furrowed her brow. I'm not entirely sure, but a mark radiating such demonic energy is most likely black. Fang Chen frowned. The Reverend of Six Dause's daughter had a black feather on her chest. For a moment, his doubts flared up again. Thinking back, the whole reason the Reverend of Six Dause brought his daughter to the Taikang Gran Province was to cure her of a terminal illness. Back then, the Reverend was an expert with a 7-aperture nascent soul. There was no regular disease he couldn't cure. If only he could take a look at Baixin's chest to confirm it. Ahem, check her birthmark, that is. But how was he supposed to do that? If he asked her outright, He'd definitely earn a swift slap to the face. He needed a clever plan, Assi. Reeling in his thoughts, he offered a cupped fist. Salute. Thank you for clearing that up, Senior Juex. Zhu Shang nodded. I'll take my leave then. I'm going to contact the major strongholds and record their coordinates for you. You should get out of here as soon as possible too. This is the first time a giant king has been assassinated in the Black Sun Royal Court. The fallout is going to be massive. Watch your back. Fang Chen watched her leave before shifting his gaze to the distant blood pool. He took out a spatial storage artifact, wondering if he could drain the blood water into it. However, with a simple thought, he realized the blood pool wouldn't budge. An invisible force blocked it from being siphoned away. Fang Chen wasn't entirely surprised. If it were that easy to deal with this menace, the Asura clan would have packed it up ages ago. Why would they let it plague their people for a millennium? If he couldn't take it, he'd destroy it. With a flick of his finger, Fang Chen launched a streak of netherworld ghost fire. This blood pool was a manifestation of the world's most negative emotions. He wondered if the Tao of lightning and fire could suppress it, that we should each always act for all, so that none might whoosh. The netherworld ghost fire landed directly in the blood pool, causing a faint ripple across its surface. The flames were working. Without hesitation, he unleashed both lightning and fire, slamming them into the pool. Yet, even under his full-force bombardment, the blood pool merely splashed a few meager waves. Even, unless he cultivated both his lightning and fire paths to origin source great mastery, he wouldn't be able to put a dent in this thing. It seemed Yuanzhu was telling Zuri the truth. The blood pool had a formidable background and was incredibly hard to shake. Fang Chen frowned deeply. Am I just supposed to walk away and ignore it? Staring intently at the blood pool, he fell into deep thought. Suddenly, a bold idea struck him like a bolt of lightning. A grin spread across his face, but before he could put his plan into action, a deafening boom echoed from the depths of the sky, and two figures plummeted rapidly toward the earth. Fang Chen's eyes narrowed, and he immediately ducked for cover. A battle at the venerable level was not something a cultivator in the nascent soul realm could interfere with. Even the slightest shockwave from their clash could be completely lethal to him. He hid himself within a narrow canyon crevice, his mind racing. Asura King Ari's sudden move had thrown his entire plan into chaos. First off, if Yuanzhu died right here, who among the ancient giants would still recognize him as her husband? That giant king of fortune would immediately drag him back to siphon his providence. And without Yuanzhu, how was he supposed to get in touch with that four-crowned Asura king? Secondly, the death of the space giant king was bound to draw out a swarm of other giant kings, making the situation exceptionally perilous. Even if he got the chance to meet the four-crowned Asura king, there would be far too many unpredictable variables. With all this in mind, a simple mission had suddenly become a tangled mess. He seriously had to consider cutting his losses and bailing out. A muffled crack of thunder suddenly rang out overhead, snapping him out of his thoughts. He looked up, only to see the bloody, curvaceous figure of a woman hurtling straight toward him. Unsurprisingly, Yuanzhu had lost. What was surprising was that this crazy woman was crashing right toward him. Just like Venerable Mantra, she must have tracked him by locking onto his aura through the items he carried. Can't you guys just leave me alone for once? Fang Chen hesitated for a second, but then he noticed that Asura King Ari wasn't pursuing her. Instead, the enemy was rushing frantically toward the blood pool. Making a split-second decision, Fang Chen shot into the air and caught the falling Yuanzhu. Looking down, Fang Chen was shocked. She had a gruesome, head-sized hole blown straight through her chest, where her heart used to be. Her already slender body was practically torn in half at the torso. Her eyes were closed shut, and her life force had faded. Only her inherently powerful physique was still instinctively radiating a potent yin qi. No wonder Asura King Ari didn't bother giving chase. Even A two-crowned Asura King, Ekidus, would undoubtedly die after suffering such catastrophic trauma. Fang Chen let out a heavy sigh. The worst-case scenario had played out, after all. Luzhu was dead. There was no reason for him to stay with the ancient giants anymore. With a shift of his will, he prepared to set Luzhu down and trigger his spatial mark to teleport back. But from the corner of his eye, he caught a glimmer at the edge of Luzhu's eye, and put the sign of the four of us at the bottom, for we had sworn that we should each always act for all, so that none might. He couldn't tell if she was crying out of sheer physical agony or absolute despair. Thinking back on everything Luzhu had been through, a wave of sympathy washed over Fang Chen. He pondered for a brief moment before letting out a soft sigh. So be it.
We made careful note of the place, and next day I drew 4 plans, one for each of us, and put the sign of the 4 of us at the bottom, for we had sworn that we should each always act for all, so that none might. You've called me husband so many times I might as well fulfill a bit of my marital duties.
We made careful note of the place, and next day I drew 4 plans, one for each of us, and put the sign of the 4 of us at the bottom. We made careful note of the place, and next day I drew 4 plans, one for each of us, and put the sign of the 4 of us at the bottom, for we had sworn that we should each always act for all, so that none might. For an Asura King with such an overbearingly strong physical body, the pill's effects definitely wouldn't be as potent as they were for someone in the core formation or nascent soul realms.
Whether it could actually pull her back from the brink of death, Fang Chen really wasn't sure.
We made careful note of the place, and next day I drew 4 plans, one.
But there was no way Luzhu could swallow a spirit pill in her current state. Left with no other choice, Fang Chen had to take one for the team. He crushed a rejuvenation pill between his teeth and fed it to her, mouth to mouth. The medicinal liquid slipped down her throat, flowing straight toward the gaping, bloody cavity in her chest. The potent energy went to work. Slowly, severed blood vessels reconnected and missing internal organs began to regenerate. But a single pill wasn't nearly enough. Kunjen had to pull out 9 more rejuvenation pills. One by one he chewed them up and passed them to her, his lips pressed against hers. Sparing no expense, his efforts finally paid off. The most vital organ of all, her heart began to beat anew as it fully reformed. Her stolen breath gradually returned. It was a miracle only made possible by her rank as an Asura King. If she had only been at the nascent soul realm, suffocating for that long would have meant absolute death. There'd be no bringing her back. Fang Chen let out a long, heavy sigh of relief. He wiped his numb lips and muttered, "I haven't even kissed Yunxia this many times. You really lucked out." Splash! The sudden sound of violent, churning water echoed through the air. Fang Chen quickly cast his gaze over. It was Asura King Ari. He had finally made his move on the blood pool. He hadn't come blindly into this fight. Instead of launching a direct attack, he pulled out a flask of thick, pitch-black liquid and emptied it straight into the blood pool. Instantly, the pool reacted. The blood boiled and hissed, violently thrashing and splattering into the air. The crimson waters began to rapidly turn a toxic, inky black. Fang Chen felt a surge of wild euphoria. The 4-crowned Asura King, hunting Luzhu, was merely a decoy. It was a brilliant misdirection, buying time for the hidden Asura King Ari to obliterate the blood pool. A scheme of this magnitude would obviously require flawless preparation. Fang Chen couldn't hide his growing excitement. Once the blood pool was eradicated, the Central Plains would finally have a fighting chance. But in the very next heartbeat, the waters began to churn with terrifying violence. 5 massive whirlpools tore open the surface. From the ground, they just looked like chaotic currents. But from above, the horrifying truth was clear. The whirlpools formed a pair of eyes, nostrils, and a gaping mouth. A massive, grotesque human face had materialized within the blood pool. The blood pool was alive. This was exactly why no spatial storage artub could contain it. It possessed its own consciousness. The moment it actively resisted, any spatial container's pulling force would be rendered entirely useless. And next day I drew 4 plans, one for each of us, and put the sign of the 4 of us at the bottom, for we had sworn that we should each always act for all, so that none might. The face's eyes bulged with rage, and its lips curled, and next day I drew 4 plans, one for each of us, and put the sign of the 4 of us at the bottom, for we had sworn that we should each always act for all, so that none might. And next day I drew 4 plans, one for each of us, and put the sign of the 4 of us at the bottom, for we had sworn that we should each always act. And next day I drew 4 plans, one for each of us, and put the sign of the 4 of us at the bottom, for we had sworn that we should each always act for all, so that none might. Crack, snap, the very fabric of space began to fracture, filling the air with a dense spiderweb of pitch-black fissures. And next day I drew 4 plans, one for each of us, and put the sign of the 4 of us at the bottom, for we had sworn that we should each always act for all, so that none might. The void looked. It was on the absolute brink of total collapse. Even Fang Chen, who was nearly 10 miles away, watched as jagged spatial tears ripped open right in front of his face. Startled, he scooped Luzhu into his arms and bolted for safety. Asura King Luzhu, caught dead in the center of the collapsing space, took the full devastating brunt of the attack. Sickening cracking sounds echoed from his body as a horrific web of fractures spread across his skin. He looked like a shattered porcelain doll, seconds away from bursting into bloody shrapnel. Blood poured from his eyes, ears, nose, and mouth, thick with surging waves of yin qi. His face contorted in absolute agony. The sheer force of the grotesque face's wrath was impossible to withstand. Yet there wasn't a trace of fear in his eyes. Instead, he pulled out a glowing crystal and let out a chilling sneer. I knew this blood pool had a mind of its own. Here's a little present for you. A blinding holy light erupted from the crystal, piercing the darkness with unparalleled intensity. Bathed in the radiant glow, the giant face instantly contorted in shrieking agony. Blood-curdling screams echoed from the depths of the pool. The moment Asura King Luzhu threw the crystal into the pool, a massive explosion erupted. A towering geyser of blood shot into the air. In mid-air, the blood coalesced into a humanoid creature of pure blood. This was the true form of the blood pool. Now the crystal, radiating pure holy light, was embedded deep within its chest. The creature writhed and twisted in sheer agony, thrashing violently. Its body began to dissolve, liquefying back into bloody drops that rained down into the pool. Axi. The entity of the pool was being destroyed. Once it died, the blood pool would lose its terrifying power and become vulnerable. As long as someone could get close enough, they could easily collect it inside a spatial storage artifact. But before Asura King Luzhu could celebrate, the dying spirit in the blood pool locked its hateful glare onto him. Just before it dissolved completely, it pointed a trembling finger at Asura King Luzhu. A massive torrent of pure, dark malice surged directly into his body. One for each of us, and put the sign of the 4 of us at the bottom, for we had sworn that we should each always act for all, so that none might. Asura King Luzhu clutched his head, screaming in agonizing torment. One for each of us, and put the sign of the 4 of us at the bottom, for we had sworn that we should each always act for all, so that none might. He thrashed violently in midair. His body began to swell rapidly. He was actually transforming into a giant king. Gritting his teeth, he used his sheer willpower to fight it off, forcing his body back into his Asura clan form. But the relief was short-lived. His body ballooned once more. A moment later, amidst a violent explosion of blood mist, he transformed into a towering, 200-foot-tall giant king. 3 glowing purple stars burned brightly on his forehead, so that none might. He had become a 3-star giant king, 1 for each of us, and put the sign of the 4 of us at the bottom, for we had sworn that we should each always act for all, so that none might. And put the sign of the 4 of us at the bottom, for we had sworn that we should each always act for all, so that none might. The blood pool wasn't even destroyed, and now they had a 3-star giant king to deal with, that none might. A 1-star giant king was already incredibly difficult to deal with, let alone a 3-star. But what happened next made Fang Chen's heart skip a beat. The 3-star giant king suddenly whipped his massive head around, looking straight at them. His colossal eyes locked onto Fang Chen and Luzhu, having just transformed. His mind was a blank slate, stripped of all his Asura clan memories. He was now a mindless beast, driven purely by the primal urges of slaughter, greed, and insatiable hunger. To him, Fang Chen and Luzhu were nothing more than prey. He let out a deafening roar, unleashing a visible shock wave that ripped through the air, tearing up the ground as it surged toward them. Feeling a chill run down his spine, Fang Chen grabbed Luzhu and instantly activated Shadow in the clouds to flee. But the shockwave was too fast, shattering his lightning dragon instantly. The 2 of them were blasted out of the sky and crashed hard onto the ground. Enchi. Jolted by the violent impact, Luzhu slowly opened her eyes. The first thing she saw was Fang Chen's face, hovering over her. Blood was trickling from the corner of his mouth. He was clearly in pain. Dazed, she turned her head to look around. Before her stood a towering 200-foot-tall giant king with 3 stars on his forehead. It was Jure had indeed transformed into a giant king. Her pupils shrank in horror as the reality of her situation sank in. She was critically injured and couldn't even move, let alone stand a chance against such a monster. There was no escape. She was as good as dead. A drop of warm blood fell onto her cheek. She only now realized that Fang Chen was still holding her close. It was Fang Chen who had saved her life. "Put me down," she whispered weakly.
Run, save yourself.
She struggled weakly, trying to squirm out of his arms. But Fang Chen only held her tighter. His gaze locked unblinkingly on the 3-star giant king. His expression hardened. "You're my wife. I have to protect you." It wasn't over yet. There was still a sliver of hope. Luzhu froze, a jolt shooting through her heart like a surge of electricity. Even when facing a 3-star giant king, Fang Chen was still unwavering in his resolve to protect her. Doesn't Fang Chen realize he's going to die? She looked at Fang Chen, her gaze softening for the first time. "You idiot," she whispered, "at the bottom. For we had sworn that we should each always act for all, so that none might. That's a 3-star giant king. He'll kill you in a single strike. At the bottom. For we had sworn that we should each always act for all, so that none might. You have the spatial mark. You can use teleportation to get away, eh? Just forget about me. You'll only get dragged down with me." Fang Chen looked down at her, a faint smile on his lips. "Have you forgotten what your husband told you? At the bottom. For we had sworn that we should each always act for all, so that none might. If the entire world turns against you, then I will make the entire world my enemy, eh? What's one measly 3-star giant king in comparison?" Luzhu's heart pounded in her chest, and her eyes widened in disbelief. The last time Fang Chen had said those words, she'd simply given a faint, knowing smile. After all, where in the world could you find a man that foolish? But now, she saw him. A truly foolish man, ready to defy the entire world for her without a second thought for his own life. It was like a hammer blow straight to her heart, shattering the walls she'd built around it. A wave of emotion, one she hadn't felt in so long, washed over her. But hot on the heels of that feeling came a crushing wave of shame. Fang Chen saw her as his beloved wife, someone worth dying for. But she had only ever treated him as a pawn. The light in her eyes dimmed.
Just go,
she whispered, her voice barely audible.
I'm not worth it.
But Fang Chen couldn't possibly leave. He still needed to use Luzhu to forge an alliance with the four-crowned Asura King. My wife, don't talk like that, he said, his voice firm. I will always be here to shield you. Without another word, he summoned the void fishing rod and cast its line toward the blood pool. His only hope lay in the crystal that had fallen into the blood pool, the one imbued with sacred light. It had the power to suppress the blood pool, and its description perfectly matched the sacred crystal that Ming Yi had obtained. If they were one and the same, the crystal could revert the three-star giant king, Zhi, back to his true Asura clan self. If it wasn't, Fang Chen could still escape. Luzhu, on the other hand, would have to fend for herself. With a splash, Fang Chen focused his mind on the crystal's image, and the fishing line shot out into the pool. An instant later, it snagged the crystal. Without hesitation, he yanked the line, retrieving a glittering crystal whose light had noticeably dimmed. The sacred light emanating from it was far weaker than before, most of it having been consumed in its battle against the creatures of the blood pool. Let's hope the little sacred light that's left is enough to do the trick. He snatched the crystal, but before he could do anything, the air in front of him began to shudder violently. A terrifying aura descended as a colossal shadow fell over them. The three-star giant king had leaped, landing directly in front of them. Its massive vertical eye, illuminated by the glow of 3 purple stars on its forehead, looked exceptionally vicious. Fang Chen's heart dropped, and his pulse skipped a beat. A suffocating sense of despair crashed down on him. The sheer pressure radiating from the 3-star giant king was beyond immense. The creature hadn't made a single move, yet the sheer force of its invisible presence rooted Fang Chen to the spot. He was clutching the crystal so tightly, yet he couldn't even twitch a finger. How could he possibly throw it at the beast? A bead of cold sweat dripped from his forehead. He fought to regain control of his body, but the 3-star giant king wasn't going to give him time. While its massive savage eye locked onto them, a gargantuan hand was already reaching down to snatch them up. At the critical moment, Luzhu struggled to speak from within his arms. Forget self, spirit, and ego. A flicker of confusion appeared in the 3-star giant king's eye, and its descending hand froze in place. In that instant, the terrifying pressure pinning Fang Chen disappeared. Fang Chen's control over his body returned. Without a moment's hesitation, he hurled the crystal in his hand straight into the creature's enormous navel. The instant the crystal made contact, the 3-star giant king let out a guttural roar of agony. The sacred light within the crystal began to rapidly dissolve the dark energies corrupting its body. Its towering frame rapidly deflated, collapsing in on itself until, with a wet thud, it was reduced to a massive, blood-streaked husk of wrinkled skin on the ground. Fang Chen's heart thudded wildly against his ribs. That was a razor-thin escape. Thank goodness Luzhu had intervened just in time. Otherwise, they'd be history, perhaps. Looking down, a smile crept onto his face. My wife really is the best. But Luzhu frowned slightly. Husband, how did you know a sage crystal core could turn a 3-star giant king back into an Asura? Fang Chen's heart missed a beat. He'd been so focused on dealing with the 3-star giant king that he'd completely overlooked this detail. In his supposed state of amnesia, there was no way he should have known that. Fortunately, he was quick on his feet. I saw the sun chasing Asura King use that crystal to fight off the entity in the blood pool. He lied smoothly. I figured it must have some kind of purifying effect against dark, corruptive energy, so I decided to take a gamble. I didn't think it would actually pay off, but it did. "Is that so?" she murmured. Luzhu recalled how sharp and cunning Fang Chen had been back when he still had his memories. Thinking on his feet during a life-or-death crisis was completely in character for him. She looked at Fang Chen, a look of genuine admiration in her eyes. "You really are clever, husband." With a sharp rip, a black spear sliced through the massive leather sack. Juri stood up, gripping his spear tightly. His body trembled slightly, visibly weakened. Undergoing 2 consecutive transformations had clearly taken a massive toll on him. Even in this weakened state, however, finishing off Fang Chen and a thoroughly exhausted Luzhu would still be child's play. He raised his spear, pointing it directly at Luzhu from a distance, but when his gaze shifted to Fang Chen, his hand faltered and he lowered the weapon. Even though he had temporarily mutated into a 3-star giant king, he still retained his memories, and he knew that if it hadn't been for Fang Chen, he would have been doomed. "Since your husband saved my life, I'll let you off this once, only this once." Juri spat. "The next time we cross paths, I, the medical demon of Xingjuan, will still take your head, and my sister will too." With that, he dug into his navel and pulled out the shattered, blackened remains of the sage crystal marrow. "Our chief died to secure this sage crystal marrow," he muttered, his face contorting with grief and regret. "And now, it's completely ruined. But at least we took down the guardian of the blood pool. Now, it's time to destroy this source of evil that has cursed the Asura clan for 1,000 years." He whipped around to face the blood pool, his eyes burning with pure hatred. 1,000 damn years! He could feel the sheer weight of 1,000 years of history, the agony, the rage, and the bitter sorrow of the countless Asura warriors who had met their gruesome ends in those crimson waters. Finally, this foul source of misery could be eradicated. But just as he stepped toward the blood pool, the very air began to tremble. It was as if some unfathomable, terrifying entity was about to descend upon them. Out on the horizon, a streak of multicolored clouds surged forward at breakneck speed. 1 second, it was a distant speck, and the next, it was looming right over them. The vibrant clouds rolled out before them like a grand tapestry. High above, 9 primordial fierce beasts roared as they charged down this celestial pathway, pulling a massive, ancient war chariot behind them. Juri turned pale. Multicolored clouds to pave the way, primordial fierce beasts as his escort. It's the 5-star giant king. Why is he here so early? By all calculations, he should still be locked in a stalemate with Juri's elder sister. Why had he suddenly abandoned the front plan? Juri cast a frantic glance at the blood pool, but he had no time. The 5-star giant king could disintegrate him with nothing more than a passing glance. Instantly, he dissolved into a pillar of dark yin qi and vanished into thin air. Fang Chen stared at the apocalyptic spectacle in disbelief. So this is how a 5-star giant king makes an entrance. Luzhu's expression tightened. She tried to pull herself out of Fang Chen's embrace, but the moment her feet touched the ground, her knees buckled. Fang Chen caught her, holding her steady. "Take it easy," he said gently. Luzhu looked up at him, biting her lip. "You need to leave now." She had never planned for Fang Chen to cross paths with the 5-star giant king. There was no telling what the monster would do to him. If the king discovered they were husband and wife, even if it was just a ruse, he might slaughter Fang Chen on a whim. The cruelty and coldness of a 5-star giant king far surpassed any other giant king. She had no choice but to let him escape. "Go where?" Fang Chen asked. Luzhu gritted her teeth. Back to your central land realm. Activate your spatial mark right now. Don't hesitate. Truth be told, Fang Chen was just as rattled. He had never expected to face the 5-star giant king either. This was the supreme commander of the enemy forces, a monstrous powerhouse who had single-handedly crushed the 3 deity transformations and 1 bodhisattva. Against such overwhelming, godlike power, any trick up Fang Chen's sleeve was useless. He couldn't fight him, and he wouldn't even get a chance to run. But if he fled now, everything he'd worked for would be ruined, with no one left to hold the 5-star giant king back, who would stop him when he invaded the Taikang Grand Province. Every single soul transformation venerable in the Taikang Grand Province would be slaughtered like sheep. If his homeland stood any chance of survival, this monster had to be kept off the battlefield at all costs. He weighed his options, gritted his teeth, and made his decision. He was staying. Forcing a look of naive confusion onto his face, he asked, "Wife? What do you mean? Go back to the Central Plains?" "I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying right here with you." Luzhu was sick with worry. She had absolutely no way to protect him now, and even if Fang Chen wanted to flee, it was already too late. The 9 primordial fierce beasts soared to the peak of the sky, dragging a colossal chariot behind them. A towering giant stood upon the chariot, his hands casually clasped behind his back. He was nearly 100 feet tall, his skin gleaming with a radiant gold. Bathed in the light of 9 suns, his shadows stretched across the boundless earth like a colossal mountain. The sheer terror of his aura made the ancient ground of the heaven realm shudder. A massive vertical eye looked down with absolute godlike authority. Its gaze shifted slowly, sweeping past the blood pool, gliding over the space giant king's land of demise, before finally locking dead onto Fang Chen. Bro literally rizzed up a 2-crown Asura King, claimed her as his wifey to survive, stole her first kiss, and then had the absolute nerve to drop a me against the world romantic monologue while on the brink of getting flattened. Fang Chen's survival instincts are downright criminal. He pocketed legendary crystal dust, fed his fake wife pills mouth to mouth, and deleted a giant king with sneaky snake venom, all while playing the clueless victim. Absolute cinema. But now, a 100-foot-tall golden 5-star giant king has landed. Would you abandon the wife you just manipulated into actually loving you, or risk the entire Central Plains to keep playing husband of the year?